Caught my pregnant wife on camera cuddling with a coworker. Now I'm questioning everything, including paternity. My wife, 38F, and I, 39M, have been together for 12 years. I don't know how to characterize it other than as the perfect connection. In 12 years, I believe we've only raised our voices at each other perhaps 2 or 3 times. We do everything together, but we've never had a problem letting each other live our own lives and pursue our own interests. We bought a house where we wanted, and we both had fantastic high-paying jobs with excellent work-life balance. Basically, it's been everything but perfect. We've been trying to become pregnant for 2 years and haven't been successful. We were preparing to begin fertility treatments when I returned home from a business trip, and guess what? She was pregnant. I got this strange notion. Wait, I thought we didn't try during the week last month because of fertility testing. But I couldn't remember exactly since we were so busy. So I assumed I had misremembered. Now, I frequently travel across the country for work. Other than during COVID, I've been on the road for up to 40 weeks per year. Since COVID, it has been reduced, but still more than a week every month for the past 4 to 5 years. My wife has become quite friendly with the guy she works with. Let us call him Matt. Matt is slightly younger, around 34 million. I know him. He is married, and I know his wife. They've been working together for around 7 years. He's always been around, and we've been friendly. Have I ever suspected something was going on? No. But I've always thought you'd be a fool to believe there's no chance your partner may leave the relationship. Maybe I'm naive, but I've always considered it as a safety not to take my wife, or any previous companion, for granted. She has never given me cause to believe she would do that, but anything is conceivable. I was out of state for work about a month ago, while she remained at home. I asked her what she had been doing earlier in the day and she replied Matt was coming over for supper. This wasn't unusual. Matt stops by on occasion. Sometimes with his wife, sometimes alone, and occasionally when I'm not around. I didn't think much about it. We installed a security system with cameras inside and outside the house following an unrelated event a few years back. The cameras record footage, which she and I can view live. I frequently use those cameras to check on the dog while I, or both of us, are away, because the rest of the system is monitored by a business in case an alert goes out. She knows I check those cams. There's even an installed system that allows me to communicate with them. If any of us is out of town, I'll play pranks on them, and she will do the same. She travels for work, although far less than I do. The point is, it's known that I check them frequently when I'm not at home. So I switch on the camera and see my 4-month pregnant wife sleeping on her side on the floor, with Matt sitting on her leg and massaging her hips with a foam roller. Okay, what the __ is this? I begin rewinding through the footage and they are eating and talking regularly. But then they get on the couch and share the same blanket. They are now feet to feet, but that couch isn't that huge. Then they move to the floor, and I logged in. Anyway, I text her while I'm still monitoring the cameras. They both appear like deer in headlights, and he swiftly departs. We get into an argument. She isn't angry with me for accusing her, but she is adamant that nothing happened, or ever will happen, and that what I witnessed was innocent. She complained about being in agony from the pregnancy, which I know is real. She is already experiencing back pain and other symptoms. The most significant moment of the conversation was when I questioned her, if I were there, would you two have been comfortable doing any of that in front of me? She hesitantly said, no, probably not. I told her I didn't want to talk after that, but we'd discuss it when I returned home in 3 days. That's when it occurred to me. What if my strange gut feeling about her telling me she was finally pregnant was related to this? What if my 1% chance came true and we did not have this child? It's now eating away at me while I spend 3 days alone in a motel 1,000 miles away. I resolved with myself that I believe it is less likely than more likely that something between them occurred, but my 1% has now increased to 10%, 20%, or possibly more. When I arrive home, she's walking on eggshells and doesn't say it. I wait to see what she will do. 2 days later, she finally brings it up and collapses. She claims nothing happened and that she would never cheat. She doesn't go beyond to prove her innocence, which I viewed as a positive sign. Anyway, we resolve the issue and continue forward, at least for the time being. I'm still coping and figuring out how to trust her after all this time. I'm gradually realizing that they've been pals for a long time. Maybe he has intentions, but I don't think she does. I've spent a lot of time with both of them and have never noticed anything wrong. What is destroying me right now is the concept that if I am wrong and something happens, I will be able to deal with it. What if the child is not mine? I've never mentioned it in our disputes or the few lengthy discussions we've had about the problem, and she hasn't either. Mostly because I don't want to further the situation by crushing her. Especially if she's telling the truth, which I mostly believe. The only option I can think of at this point is to wait until the baby is delivered and then order a paternity test in secret. Should I do this? Should I tell her and deal with the situation now? If you were a woman in her circumstances and told the truth, would it ruin you or your opinion of me? If I asked you if you were lying, how would you respond? I don't want to ask such a vague question, but what should I do? Mini update. There are a lot of comments. Thank you everyone. More than I can handle directly, but I'll continue reading. Some have made valid comments about tackling it now rather than later, which I am contemplating more than previously. Thank you to those that concentrated solely on my relationship. I understand, but that is not my main focus right now. We've been discussing it a lot. My wife and I are fairly open with each other. I'm not saying I believe nothing happened, but I'm more concerned with paternity right now. If I need to track or spy on my wife using Life 360, then this relationship is gone. That is not the connection we have, nor is it one that I want or believe anyone should have. We are working to rebuild trust. As I said in this lengthy essay, my 1% suspicion increased to 10% or so. Trust me, I take my relationship seriously, but if the child isn't mine, there's no use in continuing the talk. I have previously addressed this with my lawyer. I don't live in a state where the birth certificate issue would be a problem. If I have documentation proving the child is not mine, divorce will be less of an issue. We are both in independent financial situations, so it will not matter much. I'll keep updating this page as long as possible and offer an update when and if anything is fixed. Update 1, May 10, 2024. She was out of the state on a work trip until late last night. It is Friday, and she is working from home in our kitchen today. I asked to speak and brought it up, requesting a paternity test. She quickly responded yes, without hesitation. She stated unequivocally that she has no reason to be concerned. She has no trouble taking the test right now. The one condition I left was that if it is at all intrusive, according to our doctors, I am fine with waiting till it is low risk. I'm not a doctor, and I have no idea what they'd have to do to test now, so we'll see. But she is aware, and we are receiving one. It was a decent and lengthy talk. We're currently sitting together for lunch. She has no idea I did this on here, therefore the new account because she is on here somewhere. Thanks to everybody for your assistance and opinions. A lot of you reminded me that we are already very open about everything, and if nothing happened, she wouldn't be concerned about getting a test. I was more concerned about her health and adding an absurd level of stress if there was a problem, given she is in a high-risk pregnancy and it has taken us so long to become pregnant. So again, thank you for your assistance. I suppose I could update whether the child is mine or not, but I'm not sure how long it will take. I am 90 to 95% certain the baby is mine, but this will help us continue the conversation. Update 2. Because it appears to be a more relevant topic in this post than in the other, I do have the film. No, I have not spoken to Matt yet. He's informed her he wants to discuss it, but I've ordered them to wait. My relationship with my wife, as well as the paternity test, are currently the most important things. I will ultimately speak with Matt. No, I am not going to purposefully entangle Matt's wife. I don't see why I would, except to be vindictive. I won't cover for him, of course, but his relationship is his, and mine is mine. I'm not interested in making things worse. Whatever happens between him and his wife is none of my business. We've had a lengthy discussion about why my wife believed she could be intimate with someone else. Nothing is being neglected. I could write an essay about our history, her motivations, and my thoughts about it, but instead I'll simply state that I'm aware of it. She denies any more wrongdoing, but concedes it was not a good appearance. She was not thinking about it at the moment, and that is what we are currently dealing with. When asked if it appeared harmless and if my wife visited Matt's house when his wife was not present, I said that she was 4 months pregnant and I was at home. We've been so busy with work that the days have blended together. Trust me, we are quite open people who are at ease with themselves and one other. I'm not sure if she's been to his place without his wife. I mean, the 3 or 4 of us maybe only hang around once or twice a month, but they work directly together every day and have for years. So, obviously there is some closeness there. They are both in senior executive positions at their organization. I too have long-term female friends with whom I have traveled, had dinner, and hung out in hotel rooms, but I have never crossed any lines since it is not who I am. I'm married, and I adore my wife and life. I see no reason to do anything inappropriate. So yeah, the optics are awful, but I need to determine whether it's just lousy optics or anything else. Matt may have motives, but I'm not sure. That's the thing I need to figure out, if I trust her to handle it. She claims she has never been aware of Matt's intentions. She spends almost the same amount of time with him and his wife as he does with us. She works in a building nearby, while I reside on the coast while my company is headquartered in Chicago, so my coworker buddies are considerably more dispersed. We can't simply grab after-work beverages as others can. Because of this, I frequently attend her work hangouts rather than my own. I'm also acquainted with her CEO, so while it's not ideal, I've always trusted her. I've never had a reason not to, until now. This is the first fracture or ding in our 15-year-old trust. To clarify what happened that day, my wife said something to Matt, who froze. He murmured something I didn't hear and she added, "No, don't worry about it." He put something in the dishwasher and she let him out the front door. He did not jump out the window or anything. I'm not going to include every single nuance or detail in this post because it would take hours to write, and I'm not uploading security tape for strangers to see. I installed the security system after an event involving a stranger on the internet. I'm not suggesting nothing transpired between them, rather I'm not sure. That is what my wife and I talk about practically every day, and what we are going through. The original point of this post was that we had not discussed paternity. I didn't want to place her in a situation where she would lose the child, whether mine or not. Not only was I unable to describe every delicate detail, but I also included incorrect details about our life that had nothing to do with what happened. I used to be a minor public figure and some internet troll came across the country to threaten us with death. It grew to the point where the federal government had to intervene. People here are jumping to conclusions with far less knowledge than I do, and they are ignoring the original premise of the post and the questions I posed. Some inquired if I had informed Matt's wife. No, I have not. She is my wife's friend, but we don't spend much time together. I know her through my wife and I only see her every few months, at a bar after work or when they come over for dinner or to hang out. We are not best buddies. Should I actually go tell her, "Hey, your husband was at my place"? I knew he was there because I observed him apply a foam roller to my wife's hips while sitting on her feet. It's pretty apparent there, __, and I'm not sure, but she might be carrying his baby. This is not a soap opera. I have nothing to tell her, so why would she believe me based on the scant facts I have? And why or how does that help my situation? If all of this is incorrect, then I've ruined my relationship by acting like a child and inciting drama for what appears to be vindictive reasons. Plus, I would place them in the same scenario as we are now, for something I don't even know is true. I believe you have completely lost the plot here. Update 3, August 21st, 2024. Hello everyone, here's your next update. I also included this in the recent update. This is where we are at. Yes, my wife is still extremely pregnant. She is at the hard to pick things up off the floor stage. She's due in 8 weeks, but it's actually 6 weeks. I simply looked at the calendar. We are currently having weekly ultrasounds. The youngster already weighs approximately 5 pounds and has a large head. Her and I had very lengthy, direct chats about everything. She is convinced that nothing has ever happened and never will. For a long time, she was furious with herself for triggering this and my doubts. I've done my best to correct this, because I need to keep the stress off her as much as possible right now. But it will definitely be reviewed after the birth. As I've stated throughout, my only concern is the child and the successful birth. Okay, mostly. Perhaps not only asterisk. The only thing we still disagree on is that I believe he was getting too close because he had developed feelings or was receiving attention that he wasn't getting elsewhere. She doesn't see it that way, but she has admitted that it is feasible, even if she was unaware of it. When I told her I wanted a paternity test, she readily consented, stating it was no problem at all. My only caveat was that it not be medically risky or stressful, as she is in a high-risk pregnancy. We both discussed it with our doctors, and they basically told us that our only option was to go to court since they wouldn't do one without the law involved, which we both thought was crazy. Her doctor was confused by it, so I didn't press too hard. To be honest, she pretty much demanded the test. I knew there were other alternatives, and I researched them, but I ultimately decided to wait until the birth. I already have a lab set up and ready for the test. I'm 95% confident it's unneeded, but I'm getting one for my own peace of mind and, most importantly, to ensure that nothing comes between me and my child. Thank you to everyone who has sent me supportive messages that I have not responded to. I'm going to go through them tonight before I leave again. For those of you who believe I should be acting like a 17-year-old high school student, either by being aggressive or purposefully cheating on my wife to illustrate a point, or implying other childish behavior, thank you for the entertainment. Stop watching TLC or TikTok. That idiotic drama isn't the way to go, kids. And to the one individual who recommended I provoke an accident with my wife, I hope you wind yourself in prison someday. It's quite unlikely that I'll return here after tonight, at least until I receive the test findings. If you're still interested in the results, check back in 1.5 to 2 months. I've been advised that the findings take roughly 48 hours after submission. I'll give you your moment then. From being kicked out at 14 for bad grades to building a six-figure business, my journey of overcoming adversity. I am a 27-year-old boy, and my parents kicked me out of the house because I received poor grades. Yes, you heard that correctly. Despite having lived in the United States for 2 generations, my parents have learned little from American parenting techniques. They have become preoccupied with my school grades, believing that good marks are the only way to live a successful life. To make matters worse, my older sister has always been an excellent student, resulting in continuous comparisons at home and at school. Things were considerably better in elementary school. My sister finished with an A+ and topped her class, whereas I only received an A, which sparked my parents' dismay. In middle school, the comparison game started. Following each exam, my parents would compare my grades to those of my sister from the previous year. The more they compared, the lower my grades became. My grades plummeted from A's to B's and C's, and my parents' rage increased with each drop. They attempted every type of punishment except physical torture. I was forced to kneel for hours without food or water, and I was starved the night before examinations to help me concentrate. A month before exams, they took away my video games, locked me up at home, and forbade me from going outdoors or eating any of my favorite meals. Whenever I requested something, they said, "Get good grades and you'll get it." I eventually stopped asking for anything. My parents own a modest grocery store and hail from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. My grandparents were immigrants who worked several jobs to make ends meet. My father had to leave school at a young age to support his family. My parents worked hard in their teens and 20s to save money and start the store. They believed that education was the only path out of poverty, despite the fact that we were not as impoverished as they claimed. It's the standard save for a rainy day attitude while hungry in the present. While I respect their efforts, they overdid it. They didn't realize that school grades weren't everything. Torturing me at such a young age was a recipe for disaster. I tried so hard to match my sister's grades, but I couldn't. I struggled at memorizing, unlike my sister, but I excelled at calculations. As their punishments became harsher, I grew more rebellious. I began skipping courses and adding jokes and song lyrics on my exam papers to irritate them. They grounded me, putting me in the basement with my books and not letting me go until I finished my lessons. I was not permitted to play outside on weekends or vacations, and my video games and comic books were taken. But I was a bright kid. When my parents went to work at the grocery store, I would sneak away and play for the entire day. When they learned I was sneaking away, they started taking me to the store on weekends and throughout summer vacations as punishment. However, this backfired, as I began to like it. I enjoyed talking with clients, assisting them in making product selections and managing the cash register. My folks were not delighted. They did not want me to run the grocery business, they wanted me to be a doctor or an engineer. Anything less was considered a dishonor to the family. One day, I casually said that I wanted to be a salesperson because I was good at closing deals. My folks were horrified. They believed that only ignorant people work in sales. Because they were spending so much money on my schooling, I was expected to pursue a respectable career, such as becoming a doctor or engineer. This tension persisted until I tested their limits by receiving a F in my freshman year of high school. My parents were devastated when they learned I would have to redo a year. They were finished with their customary punishments and reacted as if I had committed a crime. They had no choice but to hit me, but they refrained. Instead, they exposed me to severe verbal abuse and psychological suffering. They claimed I had brought dishonor on the family and could no longer live with them. They tossed me out of the house and commanded me not to return, even if I died from starvation or cold. I was devastated. Despite my rebellious inclination, I had never envisioned running away from home, and I was unprepared for this predicament. My parents didn't allow me to mingle much, so I had few friends to turn to for assistance. I was either confined at home or sent to the grocery store to help out. However, once my initial dread of living on the streets subsided, I experienced a startling sense of freedom. It was a huge relief to finally be able to accomplish what I wanted. My first night, I slept on a park bench. The next day, I headed downtown looking for a sales position. I knew I had an aptitude for selling, so I went from store to store, asking if there were any openings. After applying at over a dozen businesses, I got a position at a beauty shop. It wasn't simple because I lacked qualifications and prior experience, but the owner required someone immediately. He challenged me to sell a costly lipstick as an add-on to a customer who only wanted night cream. I managed to sell it and the owner saw my potential. He was impressed by my ability to sell makeup to young women and employed me. The salary was poor, but he did offer me a place to sleep. As my sales increased, I requested a commission on each sale, and it was the beginning of my path to become a successful businesswoman. Ironically, my parents thought forcing me to work at their grocery shop was punishment, but it actually provided me with valuable real-world experience that would benefit me later in life. I wish they had recognized my potential and understood that practical experience is far more valuable than memorizing academic material. Following that, I bounced about jobs in search of higher salary. One business even offered to cover my college expenses, but I declined. I had something else in mind. At the age of 21, I founded my own company, which offers support and sales services to other small enterprises. My company closes deals for other product-based businesses, generating cash in exchange for large fees. We sell a wide range of things, including credit cards, insurance, cosmetics, and books. It did not expand immediately. It took over 5 years to stabilize. I began with simply 5 staff working for a single client, who sold mattresses and pillows. My organization now has 200 sales agents that assist over 50 companies in selling thousands of products. That's enough backstory. Here's the current issue. My mother has been monitoring me online. She recently began following me on Facebook and Instagram. My accounts are public, and she has been liking older posts and photos. I'm not sure if she's trying to draw attention to herself or if she's simply making mistakes while zooming in on my photographs. One thing is certain, they are fascinated by my lifestyle. They used to think I was a loser who couldn't do anything without decent marks, but today I earn 6 figures every month. My mother texted me a week ago, saying she missed me and wanted me to come home. I saw the message but did not reply. She has been pouring me with compliments about how proud she is of my accomplishments. She's now bugging me to come over. Regardless of how much I disregard her messages, I can't stop thinking about them and my childhood trauma. Part of me wants to go home and brag about my success in front of them, to let them feel the embarrassment they caused me. However, my partner believes that I should avoid them. And don't get caught in their emotional net. She believes they will eventually use guilt to extort money from me. What do you all think I should do? Update 1. Hello everyone? This is going to be hilarious. Despite my girlfriend's warnings not to meet my parents, a part of me wanted to brag about my accomplishment, so I went to their door. Dad wasn't home, but my mother and sister were waiting for me. Dad is still unaware of my achievement. He believes I'm generating money by scamming others and does not want to be affiliated with me. Mom apologized and said that I had to suffer because of Dad's old-school notions that good grades were the key to life. It was funny how she made Dad the scapegoat, despite the fact that she was also complicit in abusing me. I pointed out that she was really stricter in punishing me, but she dismissed it, claiming she was simply following Dad's directions as a good wife. When I tried to hold her accountable, she smiled and claimed it was all in the past, and we should go on and reconnect as a happy family. I inquired about my sister's life. She informed me that she has a master's degree in literature but is having difficulty finding work as a teacher due to poor communication and social skills. Despite knowing the cause for her terrible people skills, I pretended to be intrigued and asked her why her high academics weren't helping her get a job. She blamed our parents, claiming that she had spent her entire childhood confined in a room studying to impress them. She pushed herself to the limit and separated herself from everyone. I knew how lonely she was at school. She had few friends since Mom wouldn't let her mingle. Mom believed that white kids were terrible students and negative influences. Despite her hard work, my sister's lack of social skills is now limiting her professional prospects. Seeing her situation, I'm pleased I rebelled. Else, I'd have ended up like her. My parents attempted to isolate me as well, but I resisted. My sister joined me in condemning Mom's terrible parenting. Mom began sobbing and, once again, expertly deflected the blame to Dad. After we finished blaming her for our horrible childhood, I asked her why she had contacted me. She went on and on about how proud she was of my accomplishments, despite the fact that she had no idea what I did for a job. As I've previously stated, Asian parents define success as being a doctor, engineer, or having a high-paying position at a bank. They don't comprehend entrepreneurship. To them, running any business is the same as running a grocery store, which they despise. Sitting in that house reminded me of my upbringing, when my parents warned me I'd wind up on the streets as a loser. They even misled me into believing I was mentally ill since I couldn't get A+ grades. Oh, and I failed to mention that they sent me to a therapist because they believed I was having trouble focusing on my academics. After 2 or 3 sessions, the therapist chastised my parents for putting too much pressure on me, claiming I was a perfectly normal child with an average IQ for my age. My girlfriend bet that mom invited me to ask for money. She lost the bet, and mom did not ask for any money this time. However, her behavior indicates that the request will arrive shortly. Since then, mom has been continually checking in on me. My girlfriend wagers $1 that whenever she receives a text, it will be about money. LOL, I've won every bet thus far because mom hasn't inquired, but I suspect I'll lose soon. Mom has invited me to dinner this weekend. I understand she's attempting to present a rosy picture before asking for things. I just got a text from her saying she's arranging supper for me this weekend. I'll provide an update in my future post. I have to rush immediately. Goodbye. Update 2. Hello everyone, I got my sweet revenge on my folks. I don't think they'll ever call me again after this humiliation. In my last piece, I noted mom's text invitation to supper. I said I was busy and couldn't make it. Yes, I was playing hard to get. Since she insisted, I questioned her why she was being so nice to me since dad still suspected I was making money illegally. She stated that dad was organizing the dinner as a way to make amends. She said dad was proud of me and wanted to apologize in person. I inquired, "What do you mean by organizing? It's only the 4 of us, correct?" She responded, "No, we're inviting all the close friends and relatives living nearby." I answered, "Sure, I'll be there." I couldn't pass up this opportunity to confront my childhood pain. Mom asked me to dress nicely and arrive on time. My rebellious side kicked in. I arrived 2 hours late, dressed in my gym sweatshirt, trekking shorts, and cap. For an Asian parent, wearing shorts to a social gathering is equivalent to committing a crime. Mom called me repeatedly, but I didn't answer. I just texted a couple of times that I'd be late, with no reason or explanation. I'm sure that annoyed my folks. They have a habit of portraying themselves as excellent hosts. When guests came to our house, my parents would spend at least 2 days cleaning every area, making a list of foods to offer, and arranging everything in its proper place. Guests would be served on our finest china, and if they stayed, they'd sleep on the softest sheets and pillows. My parents would argue that it is part of our tradition to treat guests properly, but some of it was excessive for social acceptance. My parents had reserved seating on the restaurant's rooftop. When I came in such casual dress, I received quite a few stares. Because I make more than everybody else there, those looks were disguised with phony smiles of gratitude. My parents were obviously upset, but they did not show it. Instead, they hugged me and raised a toast, singing my praises. This was the first time dad had held me and it did not seem comforting. I felt resentful. The way they acted made me wonder whether I was the jerk for believing they were incorrect all along. But they were imposters. The hall was crowded and for a while, I pondered discreetly eating dinner and leaving. But when they proceeded to tout my accomplishments as their own, I became outraged. They boasted about my accomplishments, belongings, and lifestyle, taking full credit for molding me into a good person. My outspoken aunt then questioned, "Didn't you guys throw him out of the house?" I laughed and applauded her bravery. My parents were embarrassed, but they soon covered it up, saying it was a way to bring me on the right track. And that their penalties were what helped me achieve in life. I lost it when they stated that. I sarcastically replied, "That's correct everyone, I attribute my whole success to my poisonous parents. Do you know what the best decision they ever made for me was? I was kicked out of my house and forced to live on the streets." Yes, it is correct. You're so cocky today, stating you knew I'd be successful. It's funny because I recall another version. Didn't you say I would be a loser? A homeless drug addict? Worse, a criminal? I went on. Remember how you restrict me of family vacations as punishment for my grades? How did you lock me up at home for a week with little food? You confined me in the basement for hours without sufficient ventilation and ordered that I finish my education there. Yeah, you're correct. All of this was absolutely necessary to make me a better person. Perhaps everyone in this room should do the same for their child to help them succeed. You see, this is the secret sauce of success, you understand? It was such a monologue. I would say that the bitterness and pain that had been building up inside me for years had finally erupted. My mother tried to intervene, but I dismissed her and resumed my rant. My sister tried to calm me down by caressing my arms, but I was beyond their control. My parents were in tears, and they would have rather died than be embarrassed in front of the entire village. But I was less concerned about their reputation. Standing next to me, my sister was crying as well. Some of you may ask why I have a soft place for my sister since she has never stood up for me as an elder sibling. Well, I do not blame her. She was the same age as me, but a year older. My parents caused more harm to her than to me. At the very least, I was able to rebel, sneak out to play and finally build a better life for myself. She, on the other hand, Lost her spine by following our parents' orders. She never got to enjoy her childhood, and she now struggles with low confidence while living with them. I've offered her a position with my company, and she's even taken personality development seminars, but it hasn't helped much. I offered she start working for me to gain some soft skills, and then she could choose a job for herself. As for my parents, I have severed all connections with them. I warned Mom not to contact me again, and that I was just speaking to her to exact revenge for everything they had put me through. I've blocked her, but I plan to stay in touch with my sister. My sister patted me on the back for exposing our parents, saying it was the best vengeance I could have gotten. They don't care about money or anything else but their reputation as perfect parents in the neighborhood. Following the event, various family members and friends reached out to express their condolences for my troubles. I told them I was not searching for pity. I just wanted people to recognize that pressing a child for academics is more harmful than beneficial. My sister and I are living proof of poor parenting. Am I the asshole for refusing lunch with my girlfriend's mom to honor my late brother's memorial tradition? Original post, September 20th, 2024 throwaway account. INM, 30, lost my younger brother when I was 22. He had cancer and fought very hard. Ever since, I've been donating blood on the anniversary of his death every year. I take the day off from work, visit his grave, donate blood, and then come home, relax, and watch his favorite movie. I know it's a simple, personal tradition, but it means a lot to me. My girlfriend of 9 months, Anna, F., 31, asked if I could meet her and her mom. I have met her many times before and it wasn't the meeting of the parents for the first time, for lunch yesterday. I told her no and explained again about what I do on my brother's death anniversary. She got upset and said, "Well, it's my tradition to have lunch with my mom every time she's in town and she really wanted to see you. You can do your stupid blood donation tradition any day." I explained to her that it's not just about the blood donation. Later in the evening, while I was resting and watching my brother's favorite movie, she texted me again, asking me to join them. I reiterated that I really didn't want to and would hang out with her mom next time. She replied that I had embarrassed her in front of her mom with my selfishness and laziness. Since then, she's been distant. Do I owe her an apology? AITA. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. Question. Did Anna know about this tradition before her mother came to visit? I'm thinking the answer is yes because you said explained again, but I wanted to verify this. OOP. Yes. I have mentioned it many times before. I think she forgot about the date so I re-explained that I can't join them that day for that reason. Commenter. NTA she doesn't respect your tradition which is 1 day a year. Her mom will probably come to town more than one time in the year. Your girlfriend is selfish and entitled. OOP. Yes, she is retired and lives 3 hours away. She comes here often. Commenter. Your tradition outweighs getting dinner with a visiting relative/in-law. I'm sorry for your loss. I hope you had a good day of remembering him. If I could, what's his face in the movie? OOP. There are 2 actually LOL the very first Despicable Me movie in Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Commenter. Have you watched the new one? I see all the movies my dad would have loved to see from the franchises he loved. OOP. Not yet. I'm planning to watch it with my dad. My mom died when we were kids and my dad raised us alone. On my brother's birthday, Plan B is having him over for a movie night on my brother's birthday if the movie will no longer be in movie theaters in December. Commenter, I think you would need to think very carefully about this GF. Losing someone you live with is very hard and she is very careless with your feelings. Sorry for your loss. I lost my brother when he was 12 and I was 15. Still miss him. OP, my condolences. I miss him a lot. There are certain video games I can't even look at or play anymore because it was our special thing. Commenter, downvoted. I see plenty of room for doing lunch with your GF and her mom, and still commemorating your brother's death on the same day. It would have been easy to fit lunch between visiting a grave, drawing blood and seeing a movie. You also missed a chance to invite your GF to partake in your ritual, and instead seem to have just used it as an excuse to not go out with them. You're going to lose a lot more people in life before it's through. I understand death is hard, but it's been nearly a decade. Sometimes clinging to those ancient memories only holds us back. OP. She had never met him. He passed long before my current relationship. She never showed any interest to join and I wasn't expecting her to join. I mean if she wanted to she would be more than welcome to join. I didn't exclude her. My brother's is not some ancient memory. We were very close and we only had each other growing up as my dad was working a lot. His memory isn't holding me back in any ways. OP comments 1 hour after posting. I texted Anna that we need to talk after reading the comments. I'm going to end it. I don't have her mom's number unfortunately. OOP 3 hours later when asked for an update. Sure. So far no reply. OOP responds to a downvoted commenter. I'm not apologizing. I sent her a text to meet so I can end it. Expecting to have 1 day out of a year is not too much to ask for. Update. Same post. September 22nd, 2024, 2 days later. I texted her that we needed to talk. She never replied. Just blocked me from everywhere, social media, WhatsApp. Her best friend who was following me on Instagram blocked me too. I'm not sad. I wanted to end it anyways. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate your kind comments. Some users suggested that my brother/remembrance tradition saved me from getting serious with her in a lifetime of misery and it made me smile. Thank you again. After abandoning us for his online girlfriend and vanishing for 8 years, my husband suddenly reappears with an offer to rejoin our lives. I, 40F, would want everyone's perspective since I'm unsure about a recent choice I made for my family and am feeling mixed about. My world went upside down 8 years ago when Robert, my husband, abruptly said he was leaving the children and me. Online he had met a woman and developed feelings for her. His choice came out of nowhere and rocked me. For weeks Robert had been acting distant and unusual, but I had written off his behavior as stress due to his job. After more than 10 years of marriage, we stayed by each other through thick and narrow. I had never given infidelity any thought. Robert said at last one evening that he had met someone. Those words tore at my heart. He shouted out that the woman, Isabella, was the hottest woman he had ever seen. Her name is having spent the past 3 months in conversation with her, he developed a relationship that led him to see he was dissatisfied in our marriage. Every word he said sliced right through me like a knife. In my stomach I felt a whirl of wrath mixed with hopelessness. Though he couldn't hide his affections for Isabella, he kept reassuring me he still loved us. He claimed he had to visit her personally to find out whether it would go anywhere. A whirl of feelings swamped me and I couldn't make sense of what was happening. Our house seemed as though its walls were squeezing in on me. As I questioned him whether he was leaving us and the kids for this woman, my voice faltered. He nodded hesitantly, stating he had to do this for himself even if he wasn't sure I would grasp. Having given it a lot of thought, he was scheduled to meet her and begin a fresh life. He advised me he was prepared to help us financially as much as he could, but he had to follow his heart and satisfy the love of his life. All around me the world collapsed. It still astounded me that my husband was leaving our children and me for someone he had never personally known. Screaming, pleading, doing anything to get him to remain came first. But from his countenance, I realized he had already decided what to do. There was no reverse. Robert left us to tell our kids their father wouldn't be returning, moving out the next week. At 9 years old, Emily asked 1,000 questions, but I knew no responses. Just 4 years old at the time, Nathan clung to me as though he felt something was badly wrong and struggled to really understand the gravity of the situation. During this period I felt numb and broken. My children were the only thing keeping me from drowning in my grief. When I first told my family about Robert, they responded exactly like me. They simply couldn't comprehend why on earth my husband of so many years would do something like this. Although my parents encouraged me to pursue this legally, at the time in my life I lacked much to inspire me. I still thought my spouse would return to us. When Robert's parents learned their son had left us, they looked completely devastated and powerless. He repeated the same narrative even though they begged him to come back over several calls. Days finally stretched into weeks, then weeks into months. I was left to gather the fragments for the kids as well as for my benefit. Around us, our family and friends came together to provide encouragement and a sympathetic ear. Though the hurt of my husband's betrayal persisted, I concentrated on securing a job so Emily and Nathan would have a steady home. Robert's parents were quite helpful during this period. They provided financial support and watched the children whenever I needed a break. 8 years have gone by and Robert's only remembrance in our life now is a far-off one. Apart from that, he never contacted the children or me. He used to send us money on occasion. Over the years, I have essentially turned into a single mother, working non-stop to raise her kids and give them the love and care they so richly deserve. Emily stopped attempting to get in touch with her father and learnt not to bring him up even though she thought about him sometimes. Nathan never even mentioned him since his memory was so much hazier. Though it hurts to lose their father, they have both grown up to be amazing people. Robert's father died suddenly not so long ago. We all went to his funeral. His family attorney later told us he wanted to speak with me about his will. Robert's father had left some money for his grandkids, the lawyer said. Though it wasn't much, it may assist pay for my children's college tuition. Sitting with my kids, I told them the news they wouldn't have to worry about college costs going forward. Their smiles radiated delight, and seeing their contentment was quite lovely. Knowing that after such a protracted period of uncertainty we have one less worry on our plate felt like a weight has been taken off. I got a call last week from a number I don't know. Unbelievably, Robert was on the other side of the line. After 8 years, I was speechless to hear his voice and felt a flood of contradictory feelings. He paused, then said he wanted to see me right away. I begged him to clear me since I was perplexed. He kept requesting to meet me and said he wanted to talk to me about an offer. Why he was phoning now after so many years of silence eluded me. His continuous calls were hard to ignore, hence I paused to collect my ideas and at last decided to meet with him, though warily. The meetup was scheduled, and we agreed to meet close to my workplace in a cafe. A rush of questions and uncertainty swept over me as I hung off the conversation, making me nervous about seeing him after so many years. I chose not to tell my children anything until after I saw what this offer entailed. The days preceding our planned conference were an emotional roller coaster. In my thoughts, I couldn't help but go back over the years of trying to come to terms with Robert's abandonment, the agony of his abrupt death, and the challenges of raising our children alone. I arrived early on the day of our meeting and anxiously drank my coffee while waiting for Robert. Not long after, he came in, determined but also hesitant as he approached me. He seemed older, worn, and oddly unlike the man I had married. Our first conversation consisted of awkward pauses and cautious phrases. We sidestepped the elephant in the room, concentrating instead on friendly welcomes and catching up on the years gone by. We seemed to be two strangers negotiating the traces of a former life. Robert eventually plucked the confidence and started to explain why he had suddenly returned into our life. He mentioned how Isabella did not match the woman he had imagined her to be. She was, it turns out, a single mother too. But she had never told him the truth until he had left us and was standing on her doorstep. Their relationship was fraught with difficulties mostly related to her gambling addiction, which caused her to blow all his money. Although they argued often, Robert had decided to support her since he was reluctant to abandon someone else once more. But he came to see how fleeting life was to remain in a miserable circumstance every day until his father died recently. He talked about how much he missed everyone back home and how let down he felt about the decisions he had taken 8 years ago. Robert went on stating he had considered returning to us several times over the years but lacked the will to face us. Then he said that his father had left him their large lake house, which we used for vacations before Robert left us. He informed me he wished to sell the house, therefore enabling him to be set for the rest of his life. Quietly nodding, I listened to him. Then Robert delivered a bombshell. He said he wants to return to us and provide our kids with opulent living. If I embraced him back into our life, he reassured me I would never have to work once more. He reassured me we could enjoy the rest of our lives free from financial concerns, but I looked at him with incredulity. Using the bequest to create a better life together, Robert basically wanted us to heal and offer our family a second shot. I gave Robert's comments much thought, knowing the possible advantages the inheritance could offer for our family. But it was impossible to forget all the years he had missed, leaving me to look after our kids. Though the concept of financial stability appealed to me, I couldn't overlook the suffering and resentment accumulated over years of his absence. I thus told him quite honestly that although I valued the offer, I couldn't forget the last 8 years. I said I had been juggling job and raising the children alone. Although we may not have everything, we led stable lives and I cannot risk subjecting my kids and me to suffering once more. I wanted to keep them safe and wasn't sure if I could ever rely on him not to vanish once more. Desperate, Robert kept begging me to change her mind. But I knew that if I let him back into our life, I would be greatly risking the stability of our family. Though the idea of turning down his offer hurt, especially given the financial comfort it may provide, I couldn't ignore the emotional scars he had left behind. Since my encounter with Robert, my parents have been urging me to change my mind about turning down his offer. They keep reminding me that following everything he has put us through, the least he could do now is provide our children and me a better life free from financial concerns. According to my parents, people may grow and maybe Robert has seen his faults and wants to really repair our family. They believe I am selfish and want me to put the comfort of my children above my pain. I had been battling my decision late into many sleepless nights. I haven't been able to get myself to share with my kids Robert's comeback. Their reaction to the news and their handling of the concept of their father returning into their life following 8 years of absence worry me. Between the terrible recollections of our past and the possible advantages of taking Robert's offer, I have second-guessed my own judgment. So Reddit, am I the bad guy for turning down Robert's offer and maybe holding my kids and ourselves away from a better life? Update 1. In a few days, people left hundreds of comments and messages for me. That most of you don't believe I'm in the wrong makes me happy. After considering everyone's recommendations, I realized it was time to talk candidly with Robert's kids. Having him resurfaced in their life and shocking them was the last thing I wanted. After supper, I sat Emily and Nathan down today to gently introduce the topic. I started by sharing with them the surprising return of their father and his offer to re-enter our life. Their expressions showed a mixture of uncertainty and interest as they worked to grasp what I was saying. Their responses differed depending on whether I told them he had inherited the lake house and wanted to sell it to aid us financially. Now 17 years old, Emily displayed a range of feelings, from shock to fury. She couldn't understand why Robert wanted to come back after so many years and was as perplexed as I was. She remembered the suffering she had experienced in his absence, even if she also missed her father occasionally. Originally, she said she had missed having a father figure in her life, but she finally learned to live without him and no longer wanted him back. Now 12 years old, Nathan told us he didn't remember Robert at all, hence he didn't really care about my turning down the offer. He battled to understand the whole ramifications of the circumstances. Since I valued their opinions and feelings, I informed them straightforwardly whatever they decided would happen. Nathan consented, claiming he was happy with things as they were. Emily said she had absolutely no want to meet him. Though the idea of maybe healing our family appealed to me. I knew the scars from the past ran deep and my children's welfare came first in my mind. Walking away from Robert that day in the cafe was the right decision I made. After that, I meant to discuss the next line of action with my parents. Though he departed before we could proceed with a divorce, I never intended on being married to Robert, against what most people believe. Although I lacked the means to challenge him at the time, I have come to see that there is no reason in keeping married to this man anymore. Update 2. Over the past 2 weeks, Robert's unrelenting calls had grown even more desperate. He kept phoning even after I told him I wanted him gone. Being a non-confrontational person, his persistent attempts to approach me made me feel cornered and emotionally exhausted. I worried he would show up at my place of employment or pay the children visits at the school out of the blue. I was so determined it was time to get in touch with his mother. She looked to be the sole one who could assist me to grasp his motives and handle his unrelenting search since she knew of his reappearance. I visited with her to let her know I wanted to formally call it quits with him and to let her know I was annoyed with his continuous calls. His mother explained the true reason behind his tenacity during this talk. She said that when Robert's father left him the lake house, he had included a well-crafted clause. Only if he came back to our family could he become the house owner. I had to sign the paperwork also to support his claim to the house. This realization stunned and disgusted me. I at last realized why Robert had been following me for several weeks. His main motivation for getting in touch was to get ownership of the house, not a sincere want to atone or reconcile. The whole scenario seemed like a merciless emotional manipulation, thus I had to give much thought to my next action. It was time to act after I found Robert's actual goals. Especially one based on deception and secrets. I wanted to break out from a relationship. I have begun searching right now for a lawyer to assist with rapid divorce preparation. I have also discussed with my parents, who regret advising me to give his proposition some thought. They are encouraging of my choice to proceed with the divorce since they now realize he hasn't changed over the years. They are sorry for ever advising me to pay attention to him. I have blocked Robert so he cannot trouble me going forward. When I serve him with divorce paperwork, I want to see him personally. Update 3. My previous update 2 months ago, and now I can at last offer a cheerful one. I reached out to Robert under the guise of meeting since, as I had indicated, I was going to deliver the divorce papers. He signed right away. Emily and Nathan wanted to see their father one final time. They had many questions, and I felt it was important for them to get some closure despite the hurt of the past. We set up a meeting in a neutral location, a nearby park where we had many joyful family memories before Robert left. While Nathan clutched to my side uneasily, Emily's eyes were full with questions and doubt as she stared at her father. I began by telling him I knew his actual reason for getting in touch after so long. Robert objected that he really wanted us to give him another chance, not only the phrase in his father's will that drove him. Knowing I could not believe another word this man spoke, I shook my head in disgust. We were done. I informed him, and the least he could do to provide our kids some closure was respond to their questions. He nodded quietly. Emily first asked him whether it was worth it to be leaving us for another woman. Robert said he was disoriented and had made a terrible mistake, ashamed looking down. With a more direct approach, Nathan asked him if discovering his happiness came before abandoning his wife and children. Robert inhaled deeply, then said he wasn't thinking well at the time and acknowledged he was mistaken in leaving us. Strong and perceptive, my children were not happy with only those responses. Saying he was in a midlife crisis, Robert tried to defend his affair. Robert revealed sensitive aspects of his life with Isabella, the challenges they encountered, and his awareness that he had been running after a mirage as the talk went on. Though I doubted Emily and Nathan thought he was credible, they listened carefully. They wanted to know why he had never stayed in touch and whether he truly regretfully left us. There was agony in the voices of my children. Robert said he had been paralyzed by his own guilt and had no idea how to deal with the fallout from his behavior. He underlined again that he could give us a luxurious life right now and that he wanted us to be whole once more. Looking into the eyes of my children, I realized the choice was obvious. They shared my lack of belief. They would not let Robert waltz back into our life paying money as a temporary repair for the harm he had done. It was a matter of ethics, of defending the courage and resiliency my children and I had displayed over his absence during the preceding 8 years. Resolved, I informed him we had moved past him and we no longer needed his money or him. As he examined the divorce paperwork, I could see a mixture of regret and disappointment. Saying he really wanted to make up for those lost years, he begged me, but I was firm in my decision. Then he told me we could both gain from it if he promised to divide the lake house selling earnings with me. Emily said we didn't need his charity money, and Nathan nodded in agreement, adding we had what we needed to be happy. I suppose Robert started to cry at this moment as he at last understood what a major error he had made. He continued apologizing to the children, realizing he had made a horrible mistake by abandoning us and knew we could never pardon him. That day I felt free at last as I strolled away from the park hand in hand with Emily and Nathan. I had never realized how big of a load I had silently carried for the benefit of my kids. Watching my kids stand up for me and have my back felt great. Our divorce will follow my determination. Though I know it may be some time until I am formally free of him, I intend to take some time off to spend with my kids in between. We have been eagerly awaiting this trip for a long time. Going to Disneyland. To help offset the terrible memories of the past, I want to build lovely memories full of laughter and happiness with my children. I know that we can boldly and resiliently confront whatever the future presents as long as we have each other. My children and I are on a road toward healing and building a new, solid, and honest life despite the difficulties and emotional upheaval we have gone through. Though this chapter is far from finished, we will be creating our own story from now on, and I'm resolved to make sure it is one full of love, trust, and development. Update 4. I have some fantastic news to share since my previous post. It feels like a major success since I was promoted at my job. It took me some time to get here, but at last I am making a decent living that will let me give much more for my family. Along with financial stability, the encouragement makes one happy to know that their effort has paid off. The divorce process is running smoothly overall at last. After knowing the background between my husband and me, I have engaged a great attorney who is sure the divorce will go without a hitch. Though it could not be easy, our closure and a fresh start depend on it. Over this period, my family and friends have been at my side offering encouragement. Having more than enough now, I intend to send my kids to therapy. Knowing that my kids can struggle with abandonment, I want them to better manage their feelings and go over any residual worries. After looking at therapists who specialize in handling such problems, I came across a sympathetic and seasoned one who focuses on guiding children and families through challenging emotions. As a parent, meanwhile, I think about encouraging my children to explore hobbies outside of their course of study. Emily, my daughter, spends hours painting exquisite works of art for our house. She has a great gift for it. Nathan, my son, has always been naturally gifted at soccer. We spend our weekends supporting him at his games. Seeing my kids living vibrant lives makes me proud. About Robert, we haven't gotten in touch and I think it's better to keep it that way. As many of you rightly guessed, one day Isabella, his affair partner, approached me out of the blue. The message was hatred and animosity toward me for purportedly stealing Robert away from her, not an apology as one would expect from the other woman. She blamed me for their relationship failing and charged me with being the reason he left. Isabella attacked me in her letters, calling me names and leveling cruel charges. She asked me why I had brought Robert back to our family and said I had coached him. The messages were hostile and disturbing, and the degree of her wrath overwhelmed me. This woman had the guts to be upset with me when she was the reason my family split 8 years ago, and it astounded me. I answered her saying I was in the process of divorcing Robert and that I had no want to remain with him. She had no right to get in touch with me, so I reminded her of the suffering and uncertainty our family had experienced when Robert left for her. I underlined how my children had endured, and how our lives had been inverted all those years ago. I made it plain that I never wanted him back and that she should blame her gambling addiction and herself if she needed to assign blame. After delivering the message, I blocked her, hopefully preventing her from trying to get in touch once more. I want her to not ruin the quiet life my kids and I have created. Regarding Robert's mother, I do chat to her occasionally since she has always been polite to me. She wants me to do whatever it takes to be happy and admits her remorse on the way things have gone. Fascinatingly, his mother also stated that the lake house would not be coming to him as his father had intended, since my decision not to reunite with Robert would prevent that. Though it felt right, this discovery surprised me. Robert should pay the consequences, as his self-serving choices had not only destroyed our family but also hurt another. It is time to step forward and bid the past behind us. Although the road is difficult, the mending process is under active progress. With every day, our future seems more promising as my children are flourishing. Am I the jerk for kicking out my sister's boyfriend after he rejected the dinner I spent hours cooking? Original post, September 15, 2024. So here's what happened. I, 28F, invited my sister, 25F, and her boyfriend, 26M, over for dinner. I love cooking and have spent hours preparing this fancy meal. Homemade pasta, a slow-cooked ragu, a salad, and a tiramisu for dessert. I was really proud of it and excited to have them over. When they arrived, everything was fine at first. We sat down and I started serving the food. Her boyfriend, let's call him Steve, stared at the pasta for a moment, then looked at me and said, "I don't eat carbs." At first I thought he was joking, but nope, he was dead serious. He goes on about how he's super into keto and carbs are the enemy. Okay, fine, that's his choice. But when I offered to make him a salad or something else on the spot, he refused and said that I should have known about his diet beforehand. This is where it gets weird. He then pulls out a small Tupperware container from his bag, filled with what looked like boiled chicken and broccoli, and starts to eat it at my dinner table while the rest of us are trying to enjoy the meal I spent hours making. I was stunned and, honestly, kind of insulted. I told him it was rude to bring his own food without mentioning it to me beforehand, and he should have at least given me a heads up. He then goes off about how people need to respect his dietary choices, and that I was being controlling by not accommodating his needs. At this point, I'd had enough. I told him, if you can't eat what's served and won't even let me make something else, then maybe you should just get out. He stood up, said something like, "I'm just trying to be healthy," grabbed his Tupperware and walked out. My sister stayed for a bit but eventually left too, saying I overreacted. Now my sister's mad at me, saying I embarrassed her boyfriend and made them both feel unwelcome. My mom thinks I should apologize, but my friends are on my side, saying Steve was being incredibly rude. AITA for telling him to get out? OOP's comment. Top comment. Commenter, your sister didn't give you a heads up about his diet. OOP, honestly, no, she didn't. I'm not sure if she even knew how serious he was about the whole keto thing because she never mentioned it. She eats pretty much anything, so I assumed he was the same. But even if she had, I feel like it still would have been polite for him to at least say something beforehand instead of just showing up with his own meal. I would have happily made something keto-friendly if I had known. There is no consensus bot on AITA, but top comments were NTA update post, September 21, 2024, 6 days later. Well y'all, buckle up because things have escalated in a way I never expected. After my initial post, I figured things would calm down once my sister had time to cool off. Spoiler alert, they did not. So the day after I told Steve to leave, my sister texts me saying they want to talk things through at a family dinner. I assumed it would be just the three of us, maybe at a neutral restaurant, where we could hash it out like adults. Nope. Instead, my sister invites my parents, my brother, and Steve's parents to this dinner at my parents' house, turning it into some kind of weird intervention. I show up thinking it'll just be a casual conversation, but the moment I walk in, Steve's mom, let's call her Carol, is already going off about how Steve has always had special dietary needs, and how people who care about him should respect his boundaries. The woman acts like the guy has a life-threatening allergy, not a trendy diet. My mom is sitting there looking super uncomfortable, while my dad's just quietly sipping his beer, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. So Carol starts listing off Steve's dietary restrictions and she's acting like I personally offended the whole keto community by serving pasta. Then, brace yourselves, Carol pulls out a folder. Yes, a literal folder, with printouts. She hands one to me, one to my mom, and one to my dad. I'm flipping through this thing and it's full of Steve's dietary guidelines, suggested meal plans, and even a list of keto-friendly restaurants we could go to in the future. At this point, I'm doing everything I can not to laugh, but it gets worse. Steve pipes up and says he's willing to forgive me for disrespecting his lifestyle, if I agree to host a redo dinner where I follow his dietary restrictions to the letter. He says this will prove I'm serious about making amends and respecting his needs going forward. I thought he was joking, but no, he was dead serious. He even pulled out his phone to show me some keto recipe apps that I might find helpful. I was in total shock. My sister, by the way, said absolutely nothing during all of this. Just staring at her plate like she wanted to disappear. My mom, bless her, tries to smooth things over by suggesting we all just eat whatever we want when we're together, but Carol snaps, "It's not that simple." She says that in their family, they all follow keto together. And that's why Steve is so passionate about it. At this point, I've had enough. I stood up and said, "Look, I'm not redoing the dinner. I'm not making anyone a special keto feast. If Steve can't eat what I cook, that's fine, but bringing his own meal to my dinner without even telling me was disrespectful, and I'm not apologizing for feeling that way." And then, this is where it gets absolutely bonkers. Steve's dad stands up, points at me and says, "This is exactly why Steve doesn't trust women to understand him. They always make it about themselves." The whole room went silent. My dad finally spoke up saying, "I think it's time for you all to leave," and started walking toward the door, basically escorting Steve's parents out. Steve and my sister stayed behind, but Steve was furious. He started yelling about how families should support each other, and then accused me of trying to sabotage their relationship because I'm jealous of what they have. At that point, I just walked out and left the whole mess behind. Here's the kicker, though. A couple of days later, my sister called me and told me she and Steve were taking a break because she needed time to think. Apparently, this whole keto fiasco was the last straw in a long list of controlling behavior from Steve. She didn't realize just how bad it was until the whole family saw it play out at dinner. She even told me that Steve had been trying to get her to follow his diet for months, but she was hiding snacks in her car just to get a break from all the keto madness. So now, Steve's gone full radio silent, my sister is staying with me for the time being, and I'm still getting passive-aggressive texts from Carol about how hurt Steve is, and how he's just misunderstood. Honestly, I'm just glad my sister is finally seeing how controlling this guy was. TLDR. Steve's keto obsession led to a full-blown family intervention where his mom handed out dietary guidelines, and now my sister is taking a break from him because she realized how controlling he is. My wife left me for her rich lover, but when he lost it all, she came crawling back asking for a second chance. I am 32 years old, and I have been married to my wife, who's 27, for over 6 years. We've been together for 8 years and 3 months and have lived together for 7 years. In my opinion, everything was always excellent. I felt like we were the ideal relationship. We both have decent careers, secure money, and purchased a home 5 years ago. In February 2022, I tragically lost my mother to a heart attack. The months that followed were extremely difficult for both myself and my wife, who was close to my mother. By harsh, I mean truly rough. We hardly went out twice throughout that time, spending most nights at home relaxing on the couch and watching TV. I wasn't happy, but I assumed we'd get through it. Then D-Day arrived 5 weeks ago. My wife went out drinking with 3 male coworkers, only 5 minutes away from our house. I was okay with it, thinking, cool, but I'm going to bed soon. Around 3:30 a.m., she arrived home with those 3 guys. I knew them all. She then informed me that she was going out with them to the city. I disliked it, but I couldn't stop her. Everything closes at 4 a.m., yet despite the 15-minute travel home, she didn't arrive until 5:30. That was when my suspicions began, despite the fact that I had never mistrusted her before. 4 weeks ago she departed for an entire Sunday, claiming she was going to a carnival with her mother. I didn't trust it but had no idea what to do. She even left without saying goodbye while I was showering. She arrived home later that day, weeping. My initial answer was, "Honey, come here. What happened? What's made you so upset?" Her first words were, "I want a divorce." Following that, we had an emotional conversation. I asked her straight up whether she had cheated and she answered no. She told me she was unhappy for a long time and wanted a divorce. She had never informed me anything was wrong with our relationship, so this really surprised me. After our conversation, she left and moved in with her mother. 4 days later, I met her again since we have a puppy that neither of us can care for on our own, especially at her mother's house, so the dog is currently staying with an aunt. When we met again, I confronted her about infidelity. This time she admitted it. She said that she had cheated on me from the night she went drinking until a week later, when she left home. She stated that she believed she was in love with him. When I asked her what she liked best about him, she simply answered, "We have a good connection, a spark." That was it, I suppose. She also stated that she was experiencing a midlife crisis and was unsure about her life goals. In my perspective, she's going insane. She unexpectedly colored her hair purple and joined up for motorbike training. I attempted to reconcile with her during the first week or 2 of her departure, but she refused to budge. Every significant message I sent her was ignored. She did respond to light ones, but her responses were brief and arrogant. I really don't recognize my wife anymore. Her personality appeared to transform in just 1 week. She treats me as if I never existed in her life, as if I were a piece of junk. Is this a protective strategy to make things easier for her by pushing her issues into the future? Has she truly changed and feels this way now? How on earth is that possible? I mean, I get that falling in love is a fantastic experience, but what will happen to her after a few months when the honeymoon period with this guy is gone and she wakes up from it all? I've had a lot of conflicting sentiments. I resent her for cheating on me, and I'm incredibly disappointed. But I also see and understand that the foundation of our marriage has always been strong. 5 weeks have passed since D-Day. She still hasn't filed for divorce, and neither have I. I'm not sure, but I believe she's still seeing the person she cheated on me with. To be honest, I am split between saving our marriage and ending it. Right now, I don't care if we get back together or divorce. I honestly do not know what to do. If I file for divorce now, I might regret it later for being too quick, but I also can't keep living in this state of limbo, still legally married, but she's already gone. Edit. For the first 4 days after she departed, I was unsure if she had cheated on me or not. Those were the toughest days because I felt so horrible and as if I had messed up everything. But as she admitted to cheating, those sentiments began to vanish. Even if I share responsibility for some aspects of our divorce, it is entirely her fault. She never showed me she was unhappy. She appeared pleased, as if she could have been an actress. She never mentioned being dissatisfied or what needed to change. To top it all off, she has cheated and continues to do so. This is finished. I no longer feel there is a way out of this. Also, I don't miss her right now. Sure, I miss who we were as a couple, but who is she now? Honestly, I almost feel sorry for the next guy whose heart she's bound to shatter. To be honest, I'm doing really well after my mother died. Of course, I had other issues at the time, but I was finally getting out of the funk and climbing back up. I wanted to go outside, drink, have fun, ride my motorcycle, etc., but then she cheated and kicked me back into the ravine. It will be all right in time, but I have to say that I am not looking forward to the holidays. No mother, no wife, and my father is alone after 40 years of marriage. But we will deal with it. Life carries on. Fortunately, I have a wonderful sister and a close circle of friends who I have known for over 20 years. I'm not ready to return to single life, but I am also a little excited. I haven't dated in almost 8 years, and I haven't gone out without first checking in with my partner. Of course, I fell as deeply as possible this year, but I'm confident that there will be better days ahead. One of the Redditors was completely correct about us marrying too young. When we married, I was 26 and she was 21. I haven't changed much in those years, but it's possible that she has changed much and has hidden those feelings for quite some time. Note, she stated that she is experiencing a midlife crisis. Those are her words, not mine. To go deeper into our common interests, hobbies, characteristics, and so on, I merely indicated in the post that we lived a stable life. I didn't go into depth since I didn't believe it would matter very much, and the post is already pretty lengthy. But here we go, hobbies and interests. We both enjoy gaming, although we have never played together. I'm now playing Age of Empires 4 on my PC, while she prefers to play The Witcher on her PlayStation 4. We both enjoyed watching a good Netflix show, especially after my mother died. We did it frequently, but even before that, we preferred staying in together to watch a nice movie rather than going out drinking. We would occasionally go to the movies or play pool, maybe once or twice a month. We also went out to dinner. We both liked motorcycles. I had a license and a bike, whereas she didn't. She always enjoyed sitting in the back seat of the bike as a passenger. When she was younger, her father would take her for rides on his bike. Apparently, she wants her own license and bike, something I was unaware of. Family time. We both enjoyed spending time with our family. We'd usually spend every other Sunday at her mother's house, with her stepfather, her father's house, with her stepmother, or my father's house. We enjoyed driving to nature sites and forests, as well as going for walks with our dogs. Personality traits. I enjoyed how spontaneous she could be. Well, she appears to be too impetuous, but that's okay. I sometimes overthink things, such as whether we should buy something, whether we actually enjoy it, how much money we have at the time, and so on. She would simply buy it or book the vacation I was apprehensive about. I admire that about her. I realize we were diametrically opposed in this regard. I adored her sense of humor. We had, or have, an incredible connection when it comes to humor. We had the exact same dry, goofy sense of humor and always had a good time together. I always admired her honesty and straightforwardness, until things went wrong. She was continuously telling me how she felt, what she liked and disliked. For example, approximately 4 years ago I became addicted to a video game. At the time, I had no idea what I was doing wrong, but after a few weeks, she told me I wasn't making her happy and that I needed to pay more attention to our relationship, which I did. I kept gaming to a bare minimum. Bro, I enjoyed the way she spoke, walked and laughed. I adored her appearance. She had a beautiful grin. I even liked how she usually sneezes 8 to 10 times in a row. But as of right now, all of those sentiments I had, or have, are quickly dissipating. As for our sex life, I'll make it brief. We didn't have much sex. Since we got married, I'd guess it's been twice a month on average. In my opinion, it was always fantastic, though I'm not sure about hers anymore. Thinking back, we both always climaxed, unless she faked it, which I doubt. The sex act wasn't that thrilling. We always performed the same 3 or 4 positions and that was it. Update 1. Okay, I made several calls yesterday. In the Netherlands, we have something called a mediator, who handles all elements of divorce. This mediator handles the lawyer's work, including financial and emotional discussions. It's like an all-in-one individual assisting 2 people with their divorce. Today, we spoke with this mediator. Unfortunately, my soon-to-be ex's car broke down, and I had to pick her up. For yes, I had to for this to work for the divorce to be finalized. It is critical that both of us attend the meetings with the mediator. Anyway, the talk went well, as predicted. We both indicated our desire to be divorced, but the adultery was never acknowledged. I didn't think it was worth stating that the mediator is neutral and does not take sides. Also, in the Netherlands, there are no rules against cheating, thus she has the same rights as if she hadn't cheated. We remained seated at the table after the mediator had left, barely speaking. Our cats roaming about were the only diversion. After a few minutes, I inquired if she had anything further to say and she said, no. I thus said, okay then, I think you can go now because I don't want you here. She asked, can you take me home? I declined, saying, how you get home is your own problem. I'm not in the mood to drive 30 minutes to get you home. She looked emotional. I believe she expected me to drive her home because, in the past, I had done everything for her. After that, she called her mother, who will pick her up in about an hour. She left the house stating, I'm going for a walk for about an hour until mom arrives to pick me up. She seemed hurt and emotional as she departed, but I'm staying strong. I still notice a lot of unusual behavior on her part, and I believe she is still in the affair fog. Despite everything, I still love her for who she was, but for the time being, I'm staying tough and treating her as if she meant nothing to me. Edit. As of right now, she means nothing to me. She is just no longer the woman I loved and remained faithful to. Query. I have a query that requires some context. For the past 11 years, I have worked as a driver for a transportation firm called Supertrans. I resigned that job 4 months ago and got a new one with another transportation firm. Around 1.5 years ago, I secured my soon-to-be ex a job at Supertrans. She worked in the office, and I was the driver. I also know her affair partner, AP, who works in the warehouse at Supertrans. Because I worked there for 11 years, I know everyone in the Supertrans office. Everyone liked me, and I was close friends with some of the dispatchers. As far as I know, my old co-workers, her present co-workers, are aware that we are divorcing, but no one is aware that she is, or has been, having an affair with AP, a warehouse employee. Her direct co-worker, who works at the desk next to her, is a 32-year-old gay man who was also present on the night my wife cheated. I will call him Thomas. However, he left early that night. Thomas was one of my favorite persons at their office, and he also liked me a lot. My soon-to-be ex is currently on vacation and will return to work next Monday. I know Thomas likes me and wants the best for me. I'm seriously considering sending Thomas a message explaining what occurred and revealing the affair to him. Of course, I'd like to warn him that my wife has no morals and cannot be trusted. I mean, Thomas has to work with her on a daily basis. I want him to understand what kind of person my soon-to-be ex is. I also plan to inform him who the AP is because Thomas was with them the night she cheated. I want Thomas to understand how morally bankrupt the AP is, and I understand that this may appear to be a desire for vengeance. I suppose I do. This woman has put me through hell. I mentioned a few weeks ago that I would love to hear about her having a bad day at work next Monday since her co-workers knew she deceived me and had an affair. Really, everyone liked me. I've known the majority of her staff for more than 10 years. Furthermore, I have the option of telling or not telling anyone about her adultery. Okay, so this isn't the question I intended to ask. Should I do this? But I believe I've already made up my mind. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it and why you think I should or should not. Update 2. You've all been a tremendous assistance in my predicament. I must admit that I am mentally exhausted, but overall, I am doing better than I could have expected after only 6 weeks. I have a question regarding my soon-to-be ex-wife's current behavior. Is it common for my soon-to-be ex to treat everyone around her as trash, except her AP and her own parents, I suppose? She is clearly treating me horribly, with no respect, as if I were the worst spouse ever. She claims she's been miserable for several years, which I think is pure nonsense. Anyway, I don't really care what she's doing to me anymore. She's wrecking her life, not mine, but it's having an impact on others as well. My father gave her the sweetest note he'd ever given. And she didn't even respond with a thank you, nothing. After my mother died in February of last year, my wife would often take my father to a nearby amusement park. They both have subscriptions to it, so they go very frequently. My father adored her, and I am witnessing him age by the hour, which saddens me deeply. My soon-to-be ex-wife does not even send a thank you note. She simply leaves him to read. She also stated that she wanted to be close friends with my younger sister, but they have not spoken in several weeks. Also, my wife was meant to spend the day with her best friend, a common friend of ours, but she is now ignoring her. Her best friend texted her numerous times yesterday, wondering whether today was still on, but my wife did not respond or even check her texts. She also didn't answer the phone. So today, when they were meant to meet, the same thing happened. She didn't answer the phone. Her BFF sent her one more message, wondering whether she was still coming. No response. She didn't even read the messages, even though her WhatsApp status reveals she was online after they were sent. Needless to say, her best friend has been crying all day. She took the day off to spend with my wife, go shopping, and have fun, and then this happened. Is this typical behavior for someone in an affair fog, or might it be something else? I don't care what my wife is doing. I'm done with her, but this is so awful for her best friend. She's been crying on her couch all day because my wife treats her this way. While I'm composing this, another question comes to mind, but I believe I already have the answer. My soon-to-be ex-wife is telling everyone we broke up because we grew apart and she hasn't been happy in years. I believe it is typical for a cheater to make excuses and not be open about what happened and how they fell in love with someone else. Oh, I almost forgot something really crucial. Her BFF, a common buddy, really stayed with us for 6 months, from November 2021 to April 2022. She had recently gotten out of a nasty relationship and had no place to stay. We had an extra room, so we brought her in. Anyway, my wife and her best friend actually discussed everything, including our relationship and sex life. Everything. I talk to her best friend every day and she's been extremely lovely and completely honest with me. I asked her whether anything my wife had said about being unhappy with me for an extended length of time was genuine. BFF claims it's all lies. My wife has never mentioned anything to her, nor has she expressed any displeasure with me. Keep in mind that they told each other everything except their feelings of unhappiness. So either my soon-to-be ex-wife is clearly lying now, I'm not sure why, possibly to explain her cheating on me and fleeing our marriage, or she has kept her unpleasant feelings hidden from absolutely everyone but herself. I honestly do not know. But in my experience, I've never noticed her being dissatisfied with me, and BFF agrees. Many thanks again, everyone. Your help has been invaluable, and I would not be where I am today without it. Edit, I honestly hope karma hits her hard, sooner rather than later. Also, when people ask me why we're getting divorced, I tell them the truth about her being a selfish cheater. Just yesterday, a female acquaintance shared my communications from my wife and her. The discussion went like this. Oh my God, honey, is it true you and your husband are separated? My wife said, yes, sadly, this is the truth. The companion inquired, oh my God, no, what happened? My wife responded, yeah, well, we just grew apart over the last few years and have different life goals. We chose to terminate it. Needless to say, I corrected this and told our friend the truth, that my wife cheated on me, pretended to be in love and abandoned me for another man. Everyone who learns the truth from me is shocked. By the way, no one, including myself, expected my wife to do this. Update 3. I plan to make a new post in a few weeks. For now, I'm fine. When I realized she was out there living her life without me, I began doing the same. I spoke with my soon-to-be ex-wife several times, and the conclusion seemed to be that she still loved me, but it wasn't fun anymore, which is not surprising given my mother's unexpected death in February. She claims to be in love with the AP, but without any strings attached. I never saw her being dissatisfied with me, and she even stated that she was unhappy with life in general. So what I believe happened was that she cheated, developed affections for AP and abandoned me for him. Once that was evident, I decided to let her go and focus on myself. At this point, I don't care what she's doing or if she'll return. I am fine either way. Work is going well. I've joined a gym and have been going 3 times a week. My muscles are hurting, and I've been talking to this lovely girl since childhood. Even though it's only friendship, I'm grateful to have a female friend with whom I can chat about anything. She lost her father last year, so we can all empathize with losing a parent. So sure, I'm fine. Regarding the divorce, we had to acquire a large number of documents, which were then forwarded to the mediator. We are currently waiting to hear from him before scheduling our next meeting and moving forward with the divorce. As of right now, I've already decided that the divorce will proceed, regardless of whether my soon-to-be ex-wife returns. Divorce is inevitable since the marriage has ended. Update 4. We'll sign our divorce papers and make it official in 4 days. This is going to be a long post because I haven't updated in nearly 4 months. Well, I made some blunders along the way, but I also made movements that restored my power and made me respect myself again. For starters, 5 months after the first shock, I no longer think about or feel affected by the adultery. So, for everyone going through a difficult period, please believe me, it will get better, and time is on your side. After adultery and our breakup, I committed blunders. I begged, pleaded, became angry, furious, and felt completely out of control, as if she had lost her mind. This persisted for around 2 months. Unfortunately, after this period, I decided to stop whining. I told her that I had given it a lot of thought and that I would still be open to seeing her and talking to her, that I believed there might be a future for us, but that I couldn't guarantee anything. I have not contacted her in the last 3 months, at least not about casual matters or the relationship. The only things I inquired about were our upcoming divorce, finances, and our shared house. I didn't just sit and wait for the past 3 months. I am now 32 years old, and for the first time in my life, I went to the gym to work out, muscle building specifically, as I have always been on the slim side. For the past 3 months I've been going to the gym 4 times a week with complete dedication. I'm also seeing an improvement in my muscles and appearance. However, this goes beyond. The gym not only improves my physical look, but it also benefits my mental health. At first I started working out to keep myself occupied and distracted, but 3 months later, I look and feel much better about myself. I'm rediscovering confidence that I didn't realize I had. Pro tip of the day. When you're going through a difficult moment, the gym seems to help both physically and mentally. Regarding our shared house, I spoke with the bank, and I'm able to lend more money and take on a larger mortgage. I have to pay my ex-wife approximately $65K for the house, but I am able and will do so. After signing everything and paying her, I will be the only owner of the mutual house, which is worth approximately $300,000. I'm not happy about having to pay her $65K, but in the long term, I'm far better off owning my own home, which is worth roughly 5 times that amount. Furthermore, she no longer has her own home. She officially lives with her mother again, but I know she frequently visits AP's place. I'm not contacting her, so how do I know? I will get to that. My ex and I share a mutual buddy. We never hang out together, but we do communicate on a regular basis. As far as I know, my ex left me to be with AP and immediately began a new relationship. I'm not sure what's going on with my ex, and at times it appears she's lost her mind. I try to keep my thoughts away from her, but occasionally they travel where they shouldn't. At the moment, I think I could refer to AP as BF because that's what he is now. However, I will stick with AP because that is how it began. Anyway, concerning AP and my ex-wife, karma is a B********, and it's beginning to bite hard. When my ex and AP first got together 5 months ago, everything appeared fine for them. However, the tables are starting to turn. AP is currently at home suffering from depression, which I know since a common acquaintance showed me screenshots of a chat between my ex-wife and her. Additionally, AP is currently out of work. Even when the infidelity initially occurred, I always felt superior to AP due to his lack of morality. And I had already concluded that he was worthless in comparison to me. Well, now I know for certain, which makes me feel like my ex-wife has gone insane. I'm not conceited, but I am certain that I am the catch and a far superior man than her AP. A little extra. At the beginning of their relationship, I was still contacting and warning her. Well, I think I was correct all along. Not only does AP prove himself to be the loser I suspected he was, but he also introduces her to a substance that has the potential to destroy her life. I discovered this through a mutual buddy. I haven't spoken with my ex-wife about it. If she wants to trash her own life, that is her choice, but it appears to be going bad quickly. My ex-wife is undoubtedly struggling and may even be questioning her own decisions. I hadn't spoken or seen her over the holidays, Christmas and New Year's. However, around a week into the new year, 2023, she texted me unexpectedly, asking if I was home and if she could come over. She came over to my house and the visit lasted only about 5 minutes. She stopped by to tell me she had spent Christmas Day alone, sobbing. She inquired about my holidays and how I was doing. I informed her that my Christmas was okay, but not the best. I lost my mother last year, and these were the first holidays without her, so it was decent but not amazing. However, I told her I was doing well, which I am. So for me, this was strange. The only thing I can think about from this entire visit and why she would be concerned about how I'm doing is whether she has any regrets. Time will tell. I also chatted with my ex's mother. My ex-mother-in-law called after New Year's to wish me a happy new year and best wishes. I must admit that I did not expect the call, but it was great to hear from her because she had been a part of our family for the past 8 years. My mother-in-law told me that my ex-wife hasn't been doing so well lately. Apparently, she is quite sad and crying a lot since she is mourning her marriage. My ex even told her mother, "I wish it wouldn't have to be like this," implying that she is having second thoughts. However, only my ex has the ability to reach out and make a move, which I do not anticipate happening at this time. The only authority I truly have is to grant her the divorce she requested and then walk away from her life, which I did. I am separating myself from her life, divorcing her, and improving myself every day. I apologize for the lengthy message, but I believe this covers all I needed to say. We will sign the divorce papers 4 days from now. Even though I'm doing well, I'm still human, and I still mourn our marriage and my ex-wife on occasion. I'm sorry to see what's happened to her, but I'm also aware that it's beyond my control and not my concern. Let me conclude by thanking everyone in this community. Many thanks. Without your assistance, I would not be where I am today, both emotionally and physically. My mill threatened court if I didn't give custody of my daughter to my sister-in-law, accusing me of being an irresponsible parent. I, 35, am a single father to my 3-year-old daughter, Lily. My wife Sarah died 2 years ago from cancer. It was a sad loss for both me and Lily, but we've been working hard to move on and build a happy life together. My mother-in-law, Karen, 58F, recently approached me with a stunning request. She requested that I transfer custody of Lily to Sarah's younger sister, Emily, 30F, and her husband John, 32M. Karen reasoned that Lily required a proper family with a mother figure, and Emily and John were better qualified to raise her. This request caught me completely off guard. Lily is my daughter, and since Sarah died, I've done everything I can to provide her with a loving and secure environment. I've altered my work schedule to be more present, hired a part-time babysitter to assist when I'm at work, and ensured Lily has lots of playdates and activities to keep her engaged and happy. When I denied Karen's plea, saying that I had no intention of relinquishing custody of my own child, she became upset. She accused me of being selfish and not considering what was best for Lily. I attempted to remain cool and maintained that I was fully capable of raising my daughter, but Karen refused to listen. Karen threatened to take me to court, which inflamed the situation. She claimed to have evidence that I was an inadequate parent and that she would use it to obtain custody of Lily for Emily and John. Her threats astonished and wounded me, especially since I've always attempted to have a positive connection with Sarah's family for Lily's sake. I asked Karen what kind of evidence she allegedly possessed, but she declined to elaborate. She just kept saying that Lily would be better off with Emily and John, and that I was robbing her of the opportunity for a regular family life. I held firm and assured Karen that I would resist any attempts to take Lily away from me. I informed her that I was Lily's legal guardian and that her assertions were baseless. I also mentioned how uprooting Lily from her home and separating her from her father would be extremely difficult for her. Karen stormed out of my house, claiming that I would hear from her lawyer shortly. I was left feeling angry, hurt, and concerned about what would happen next. Since then, I've documented all of my interactions with Karen and kept meticulous records of Lily's care. I've also contacted a family lawyer to evaluate my choices and prepare for any possible legal battle. I'm convinced that keeping Lily with me is the right decision, but Karen's accusations and threats have unsettled me. I can't help but wonder if I'm selfish for not taking her suggestion more seriously. Emily has been battling with infertility owing to hormonal difficulties. She and John had been trying for a child for several years with no success. I sympathize with their position, but I don't think it justifies taking Lily from me. For Lily's sake, I tried to stick to our regular pattern during the next few days. I took her to the park, told her bedtime tales, and did my best to keep her away from the conflict with her grandmother. However, I couldn't stop feeling anxious. wondering when the other shoe might drop. A week after Karen's first visit, I received a formal letter from a lawyer representing her. The letter made a number of charges against me, including neglect and emotional abuse. I was accused of working too much and abandoning Lily with strangers, alluding to her nanny, who has been with us for over a year, who Lily adores. The letter also implied that I was emotionally unstable as a result of my sadness over Sarah's death and incapable of providing a supportive environment for Lily. Reading these claims felt like a punch in the stomach. Since Sarah's death, I have dedicated my entire life to ensuring Lily's happiness and well-being. My efforts were distorted and used against me, which was both infuriating and devastating. I immediately phoned my attorney and forwarded the letter to her. She informed me that the allegations were unfounded and that we had a good case to keep custody. She suggested I get character references from Lily's pediatrician, preschool instructors, and other family members who could attest to my parenting skills. As I started reaching out to people for recommendations, I was overwhelmed by the response. Lily's teachers applauded her development and social abilities, pointing out how well-adjusted she appeared despite the loss of her mother. Our pediatrician praised Lily's health and my parenting skills. Even Sarah's relatives and aunts expressed their support, stating that they disagreed with Karen's behavior. Despite the outpouring of sympathy, I couldn't shake the sense of betrayal. Karen has been a part of our lives since Lily's birth. She had helped us during Sarah's illness and after her death. I'd always assumed we had a decent connection, even if it was occasionally strained by our shared sadness. It felt like she was tearing away what was left of our family. I tried to grasp Karen's point of view. Perhaps she truly believed that Lily would be better off with Emily and John. Perhaps she was dealing with her own grief and wanted to keep a bit of Sarah close by raising Lily with her other daughter. But no matter how I looked at it, I couldn't rationalize her conduct or the harsh charges she leveled against me. Update 1. Emily and John arrived unannounced at my home yesterday. I was astonished to see them, especially after Emily's previous conversation, in which she apologized for her mother's actions. Lily was napping, so I welcomed them in for a peaceful conversation. Emily began the conversation by stating that they thought it would be best for Lily to live with them. John nodded, appearing uncomfortable but supportive of his wife. I listened patiently and tried to remain cool. When Emily had done, I gently but firmly voiced my position. I explained that while I appreciated their concern, Lily was my kid, and I had no intention of giving up custody. I highlighted Lily's happiness and well-being, and that uprooting her would be terrible. Emily's conduct abruptly changed. Her expression hardened as she accused me of being selfish. She claimed I was damaging Lily's life by denying her motherly care. I was shocked. Emily then accused me of preparing to marry another woman and make her Lily's stepmother, which startled me. This was totally bogus. I hadn't considered dating since Sarah's death, let alone remarry. Emily became even more upset after I denied this. In a bizarre moment, Emily accused me of never actually loving Sarah or Lily. She added that if I truly cared about Lily's well-being, I would let her grow up with a real family. Her remarks were so scathing that they stunned me into stillness. As I struggled to react, John attempted to calm Emily down, but she dismissed him. She jumped up abruptly and announced that they would be meeting with their lawyer again. Emily said they will fight for custody and that I should be ready to lose Lily. They swiftly left after that, leaving me reeling from the experience. I sat quietly for a long time, trying to understand what had just transpired. After I'd collected myself, I called my lawyer to inform her of this new situation. She urged me to chronicle the visit and Emily's threats, assuring me that they had no legal basis to take Lily away from me. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, I hugged her a little closer than normal. I told her and myself that I'd do everything in my power to protect our small family. The path ahead might be challenging, but I was ready to tackle whatever hurdles came our way. Now I'm left wondering how things got to this point. How did a once supportive family become so fractured? And most crucially, how can I protect Lily from the impending storm while also keeping her bonds with her extended family? Update 2. 2 days after Emily and John's visit, Elizabeth, Sarah's grandma, called me. She's always been the family's voice of reason, so hearing from her was reassuring. However, what she told me astonished and infuriated me. Elizabeth told me she overheard a chat between Karen and Emily. It found out that their sudden interest in obtaining custody of Lily was motivated by more than just relatives or providing a mother figure. There was a considerable financial incentive. Sarah inherited a large quantity of money from her late grandfather. Sarah and I had chosen to place all of the money in a trust fund for Lily's future. Lily could lawfully access the money once she reached 25. Elizabeth added that Karen and Emily assumed that if they got custody of Lily, they would also gain control of her inheritance. They regarded it as a means to alleviate Emily's financial problems and afford costly fertility procedures. I was infuriated. The concept of using Lily as a pawn in their attempt to obtain money that properly belonged to her was beyond comprehension. It explained their abrupt behavior shift and the lengths they were willing to take to obtain custody. I called my lawyer right away after hanging up the phone with Elizabeth. I explained the issue and sought counsel on how to protect Lily and her inheritance. My lawyer instructed me to follow these steps. 1. Document Elizabeth's statement. She suggested that I approach Elizabeth for a written statement about what she overheard. 2. Examine the trust documents. We needed to guarantee that the trust was irreversible and could not be accessed or altered if custody changed. 3. Notify the trustee. My lawyer advised notifying the trustee of the probable custody issue to avoid any unlawful alterations. 4. Consider a restraining order. Given the deteriorating circumstances, she suggested that I pursue a restraining order against Karen and Emily to safeguard Lily. 5. Prepare for court. While we hoped it would not come to this, my lawyer began drafting points to deliver in court if required, with a focus on Lily's best interests and the apparent financial objectives underlying the custody dispute. I spent the next few days acquiring all of the required papers and following my lawyer's instructions. The betrayal I felt was enormous. It was devastating to think that Sarah's own mother and sister would try to manipulate Lily for financial advantage. Despite my wrath, I attempted to remain cool for Lily's sake. She had picked up on the tension and had become more clingy than normal. I spent additional time with her, assuring her of my love and dedication. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, I found myself thinking about Sarah. I wanted her to be here to assist me get through this situation, but I knew she would be proud of how I was safeguarding our kid. I made a secret pledge to her and Lily that I would do everything I could to keep our little child safe and secure. Now, as I prepare for what might be a lengthy and unpleasant court struggle, I can't help but wonder how money was able to rip this family apart so utterly. And how can I safeguard Lily, not only now, but in the future, from those who may try to exploit her? Update 3. Karen sent me a note a week after I spoke with Elizabeth and my lawyer. She desired to meet and resolve matters civilly, without using the courts. I consented, hoping it would be an opportunity to end this nightmare. We met in a neutral setting, a quiet cafe in town. Karen and Emily were already present when I arrived. They both appeared anxious, but tried to be nice. Karen began by explaining that they had changed their strategy and wanted to find a solution that worked for everyone. Emily chipped in, proposing we schedule more frequent visits and even overnight stays for Lily at their home. I listened intently as they laid forth their plan. When they were finished, I took a long breath and decided it was time to put all of the cards on the table. I know about the inheritance, I responded gently. The effect was immediate. Karen's face turned pale and Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. They exchanged anxious looks, apparently not expecting this. I went on. I understand that this isn't about Lily's well-being or her desire for a mother figure. This is about Sarah's inheritance, which is already held in trust for Lily's future. Karen attempted to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. Sarah and I established that trust together. This is for Lily's schooling and future. It is not available to anyone, including myself, until she is 25. Emily began to cry. Whether from remorse or frustration, I could not tell. Karen appeared to be about to disagree, but I pressed on. I have been patient. I've tried to understand, but exploiting my daughter as a pawn for money is unacceptable. So let me make it clear, this is the end. No more threats, no more accusations, and no more attempts to separate Lily from me. I stared them both in the eyes. If you continue like this, I will not hesitate to take legal action. I'll file for harassment, emotional anguish, and any additional charges that my lawyer recommends. I have documentation for everything, even your financial motivations. Karen's face stiffened. You can't prove anything, she asserted confidently. Are you willing to risk it? I asked. Because I am. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Lily. The hush that followed was crushing. Emily was the first to shatter it. We just wanted the best for Lily, she answered faintly. No, I responded firmly. You wanted the best for yourselves. Lily is happy, healthy and adored. That is what is best for her. I rose up, prepared to depart. This is your final warning. Stop now or we will take this to court. And believe me, the outcome will not be to your liking. As I walked away, I heard Karen say, "You can't keep us from seeing her." I turned around for the last time. I've never wanted that. You are still Lily's family, but it is up to you to prove that you deserve to be in her life. With that, I exited the cafe. As I drove home, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief that I had faced them, grief about how things had turned out, and, most importantly, a newfound commitment to protect Lily and give her the life Sarah and I had envisioned for her. When I went home, I grabbed Lily closely, glad for her innocence throughout this. I hoped that one day, when she was older, she would realize that everything I did was out of love for her. Now I'm left wondering if I was too harsh. Should I have offered them another chance? Or was this the only way to keep Lily safe and honor Sarah's memory? Final update. It's been 6 months since my disagreement with Karen and Emily. The aftermath was difficult, but things eventually settled into a new normal. Karen and Emily backed off following our meeting. They formally apologized, admitting their mistakes and expressed regret for their acts. Although I appreciated this step, I remained wary. We've gradually restored some type of a relationship, mostly for Lily's benefit. They now have supervised visits once a month. It isn't ideal, but it's a beginning. Lily is prospering. She's happy, lively, and becoming more like Sarah every day. We talk about her mother frequently, keeping her memories alive. I created a support group for single parents who have lost their relationships. It has been healing to connect with those who understand my journey. I'm taking it one day at a time. The experience has made me more protective of Lily while also increasing my appreciation for our life together. I'm grateful for the encouragement I received and the courage I discovered to stand up for what's right. Lily's future is safe, and that is what really matters. Cousin falsely accused me of sexual assault, family cut me off. Now she's dying, admitted the truth, but they still want me to stay silent. Let's call her Jade. My cousin wrongfully accused me of sexual assault, when I was 18. Sadly, my family thought her narrative true. 4 years older than me, Jade and I were close growing up, but finally we drifted away. She is the daughter of my uncle, who was a single father, younger brother of Mom. After his ex-wife became pregnant, my uncle married young. Unfortunately, she cheated on him, and their marriage broke up a few years later. She tried to keep in touch with Jade for a few years, but finally moved away with her new partner and they never got back in touch. Respectable man, my uncle always battled obstacles on his own and refused assistance. After his divorce, he never sought another major relationship. He devoted his life to parenting Jade. He even built a college fund for Jade, but after she turned 18 he told her that although he had done all in his ability to help her, she was now on her own financially as he had to consider his retirement. Although Jade disagreed, I thought that was reasonable. If she wanted to keep on her studies, she should pay for them herself. Many arguments between her and her father resulted from her believing he should support her studies for as long as she desired. Jade thus visited my family a lot of times. She would come over to rant to my mom following every disagreement with her father. Although I personally felt my uncle was reasonable, I kept my thoughts to myself as Jade would visit to speak with my mother and not me. As she usually did, Jade came up to our house one day without warning. I was the only one in the house. My parents were away. Expecting her to go, I'd told Jade that my mother decided to stay in the living room since she needed some time away from her father following another dispute. To be honest, I wasn't interested in hearing it again as she used to vent quite loudly to my mother and I had heard enough about her battles with her father. Jade began venting to me since my mother was not here. Though I had rather different ideas on the topic, I could see she expected me to be as empathetic as my mother. I cut her off when she once more started grumbling about her father. Although my mother might have agreed with her points of view, I felt my uncle was acting rather sensibly. He had spent his whole life raising her to be a competent and capable independent lady, I told her. Now it was her chance to show him right. If she truly wanted to pursue a master's degree or perhaps a doctorate, she would have to do what everyone else does and pay for it herself. She majored in STEM, hence I knew that whatever job she finally landed would be sufficient to cover her expenses. She had just to at least try. She insisted, though, that she couldn't work and study at the same time and that she would find it too much to manage. I advised her maybe she should give up on further study if she already decided it was difficult for her to work while she was still in school. It was unjust to demand her father keep paying for everything, especially after he had already done so much for her, and she was treating him like the villain instead of being appreciative, I said. She quite obviously hadn't anticipated that reality check. She started screaming at me and calling me a vile human being as soon as I said all of this. She said I was a pampered brat who didn't deserve the support I received, hence I would never be able to relate what she was experiencing. Though I stayed quiet, to be honest I felt she was more of a pampered brat than I was. She screamed at me for a few minutes then fled the house sobbing. I avoided her since, as I mentioned, I had no interest in hearing her grievances over and over again. The sequence of events surprised me as well. My whole life collapsed the next day when she accused me of SA. One accusation turned everything around. After 3 years of quiet from my family, folks are at last learning she had lied. My parents woke me early the day after Jade and I argued, stating that my uncle and Jade were here to visit me, and it was reportedly rather vital. I had no idea what was going on, but when I got downstairs Jade started shouting, accusing me of SA the night before and acting as though she was breaking down. My parents were equally startled, and my uncle seemed really worried. Jade was acting as though she were not even in a state fit for communication. Most of the speaking came from my uncle. He said that following her confrontation with him, Jade had been inconsolable when she had returned home the day before. She eventually informed him I had lured her in and carried out the conduct she was now accusing me of when my parents were not home. Not even my uncle could look at me, and my parents avoided eye contact as well. None listened when I tried to object and assert my innocence. It was appalling. People already treated me like a criminal even though I had done nothing. My parents begged my uncle for pardon right in front of me, asking him not to publicly disclose the allegation or report me. They claimed they will do all necessary to resolve the matter. Whether I cried out or not, my uncle and dad totally turned away from me. It was so annoying that I grabbed a vase and tossed it against the wall in an attempt to get their eye. That backfired regrettably. My dad lost his cool, grabbed my arm, and hauled me to my room, closing me within. There was no way I could let Jade get away with this, hence I kept hammering against the door until my hands and arms started hurting. Telling such a big lie may have destroyed my reputation. Sadly, my dad allowed me out of the room only when my uncle and Jade left. I started crying right away as he opened the door and tried to explain to them he hadn't done anything, but they informed me they had seen security footage from the cameras outside our house. Jade had come over the previous evening, they noted, and had left the house crying a few minutes later. They decided to trust her based on her tear-filled fleeing. They told me they were embarrassed of the kind of son Jade had produced and that she had no reason to lie about what had transpired. While my mother was crying and unable to even talk, my dad assured me that, with great persuasion, they had persuaded my uncle and Jade not to file lawsuits. They were obliged to pledge something in return though. To spare her from seeing me and revisiting the horrific event, Jade and my uncle insisted that I be taken far away. After much debate, my dad decided to send me to live with my great-uncle somewhere far from the family. With his bad attitude and anger problems, this great-uncle was the least liked family member. Though he said it was the only fix, my dad knew I hated him. Not only was I being sent away, but they also told Jade that to keep things quiet, they were going to take my college fund and give it to her. I tried to complain, but there was no communication with them. Finally, I gave up as I no longer saw the need. Not even my own folks trusted me. Since her own father would never accept financial help from anyone, including his own family, I understood that Jade had most likely accused me unjustly only to control my parents and extract money out of them. After that episode, a few days later I was ready to go and packed. Neither my parents bothered to say goodbye or give me a hug. They kept me under house arrest by posing as I wasn't even at home for the following few days. My phone was taken away and I was not let said farewell to any of my friends. They cautioned me that they would destroy my life personally should I fail to get off the grid and vanish from everyone's lives. A falsehood Jade had uttered drove me to distance from everything I knew and cut relationships with everyone from my past. My great-uncle showed in a few days following that to pick me up, and I was sent off to live with him in what felt like an exile. Not one person from my past has contacted me since then, not even my friends or family. I had to totally start again in my life. It was quite challenging to fit in with my great-uncle when I initially moved in. Throughout the day he taunted me nonstop even though he had no idea why I had been sent out. Though he had no idea why I had been sent out, he would harass me nonstop during the day. He would hold it against me and tease me about it based just on my being kicked out. I had to walk on eggshells around him as he had a bad attitude and rage problems as I've noted. Though I knew my parents were paying him money every month, he still acted as though he was doing me a great favor by allowing me to stay with him. After the first few weeks, I understood there was no use to weep over lost milk. I knew I couldn't live with him indefinitely. My parents had cut me off and forbade me from interacting with anybody from my former life. I resolved to start looking for work as all I could do was maximize the circumstances. Not even could I go to college. I had been let into the college of my choice, but I lacked the resources to pay for attendance. Following several weeks of moping about and a few interviews, I at last landed a job as a warehouse worker. Although the work paid little and was physically demanding, at least with my first pay I could leave the house owned by my great-uncle. I had the good fortune to have a few colleagues around my age who were likewise having financial difficulties. The three of us decided to chip in and share an apartment and grew close friends. I knew my great-uncle would consider it a good riddance, So I didn't even bother telling him when I moved out of his house. Never heard from any of my family members once I moved out. I have been living with the same folks I found my first apartment with for the past 3 years. Every one of us has been quite fortunate. After a few months of working in the warehouse, all 3 of us resolved to keep searching for better prospects as the work was quite physically demanding. We all aspire to eventually go to college, hence throughout the past 3 years we have switched jobs and worked to save some money. I'm making a good salary currently working in sales. I have been considering applying once more to universities. My 2 buddies are doing great as well. We recently moved into a larger apartment in a far better area. Naturally, my family believes it's the ideal time to attempt and come back into my life now that things are beginning to show promise for me. I was pretty taken aback when my dad contacted me by email a few days ago since, as I indicated, I hadn't spoken with them in 3 years. Since it was one of the rules my parents made when they kicked me out and I had been anxious about them disseminating the truth and tarnishing my name, I am not active on social media. I so stayed to the guidelines. Though they never tried to get in touch with me, my email address has not changed in 3 years and I never banned them anywhere. Reading the email, it was essentially an apology for all that had transpired over the preceding 3 years. To enable his correct outreach to me, my dad required my address and contact details. In case I wished to get in touch on my own time, he also included his personal contact details. Jade had at last chosen to disclose the truth about what actually transpired, thus his apology and the abrupt attempt at reconciliation sprang from it. She was dying and, I suppose, had at last acquired a conscience or something. She informed her father the truth for whatever reason, and he talked with my parents. My parents chose to get back in touch with me once they knew the truth. Regarding Jade, her pancreatic cancer diagnosis makes it quite improbable she will survive. She has been suffering for the past 8 months. Her health is just getting worse even with continuous medication. Ironically, she couldn't even make decent use of the money from my education fund. She squatted all the money on bad life decisions after screwing me off. She chose to take a gap year with all that money and tour the globe to expand her horizons and find herself instead of working toward her master's degree. Wanting to live luxuriously, she had already spent more than half of her savings when she returned roughly 1.5 years earlier. She came back with very little left and began pestering my parents for more. If she stole any more money from my parents though, my uncle threatened to cut her off. She thus gave up on the concept of schooling since she lacked enough money left to afford a master's degree without working and since working was something she refused to do. She still had some money left, but she kept her careless way of life instead of using it sensibly or trying to increase capital. She was already somewhat spoiled and lethargic from her year-long holiday. Despite not even seeking a job, she ultimately wasted more money purchasing an apartment and living above her means. She landed a job around a year ago, but she had to quit shortly after learning she had cancer. She now needs the money, hence she has to sell her flat and all else she purchased. Although I don't want to come across as callous, after learning what had happened to her I couldn't help but feel some gratification. She was her own worst enemy, so she had no enemies. After I closed the email from my dad, I had to consider whether or not I wanted to contact my parents again. I decided to talk to my friends about it, which also meant I at last had to tell them the truth about why my parents had kicked me out. I had simply informed them that we argued. Up until then, I had not disclosed the actual cause. Email later, I at last opened it to my buddies. I told them everything about Jade, how she had lied and thrown me under the bus, and how my parents had thought her over me. They not only drove me to live with the worst relatives conceivable, but also had me cut everyone from my past off and threatened to destroy my reputation should I go against them. The truth I was imparting to my companions hardly seemed possible. They urged me not to contact my parents after I was done. They claimed they wouldn't pardon my parents either, if they were in my place. Since these are my closest friends and at this time they're essentially the only ones I have, I pay great attention to their advice. It's not only that they advised me to let go and avoid running across my parents again. They also advised me to talk about what happened to me. Though I did nothing illegal, I have been living in anxiety for the past 3 years. They are right, my parents choose to believe someone lied about me, hence I had to give up so much of my life. I have to talk if I want to take back my life. I told my parents I intended to reveal the actual account of events before I went public. People have a right to know the truth. So it makes no difference whether Jade is lying on deathbed. She destroyed my life. Today it is my chance to recover it. I thus texted the number my dad had supplied me and informed him exactly what I was going to do. The screenshots of the email my dad sent me already proved Jade had been lying. I could thus post the truth on social media immediately. Forget about just blogging, I may at last have social media once more. Though I suppose he misinterpreted the circumstances, I wasn't asking my dad for approval. Now he and my mother, together with my uncle, are blowing my phone and asking me not to do this. They contend that Jade has already gone through a lot, is suffering more than she has ever done, and has gotten her karma. They say I need not discipline her going forward. They are requesting me not to reveal the facts in public since it will damage Jade's reputation. Without saying why I left in the first place, they seem to believe I can come back into their life and resume what I left behind. In a sense, they are correct. No one will probably challenge it. Though I could, I do not think I want to. Jade stole a great portion of my life, and even my friends find it quite reasonable for me to share the truth. It is about people knowing what actually happened, not about exacting revenge against her. Besides, there are few logical reasons for missing 3 years from everyone's life and then showing up again without a word. I'm happy enough here, so I don't even intend to return to the city. Yet I do miss some of my relatives and friends who treated me well. They should, at least, be entitled to know the truth. The only thing keeping me from posting is the constant calls and texts from my parents and uncle. They almost have been begging me not to go public. Jade seems to be in quite poor form. What then would happen if I went ahead and revealed to my cousin, even if she is on deathbed, the truth of why I had to leave everything behind for 3 years? Update 1. I finished it, lads. I considered it for a long time, repeatedly asked friends, and they all advised the same thing. Though I hadn't done anything, Jade and her family had taken away 3 years of my life that I could have spent properly, and I had to live in fear because of them. Whether or not Jade is in condition, it would be quite legitimate for me to exact retribution. Many of the responses on this reflected the same viewpoint. Ultimately, it was my choice at the finish. Knowing most people would support me helped me to feel much better. My first post was a week ago, and last night I finally posted a narrative of everything that has transpired in my life together with an explanation for my 3-year absence from the net. Friends, relatives, everyone who knew me, have contracted out to let me know they are here for me and have sorely missed me. I trust them as I had several communications from folks over the first few months after I vanished. Apparently, my parents advised everyone not to search for me after that, saying I wanted to be left alone since I had gone through something horrific and needed time and space to recover. People thus stopped trying to get in after the first few months, believing they were honoring my choices. My friends informed me they had repeatedly asked my parents where I was, but my parents never told them, so they couldn't get in touch with me. Even many of my family claimed to have waited patiently for me to come back. Seeing how ready everyone was to welcome me back and how none had forgotten me made me somewhat cry. Most importantly, people have claimed that they always regarded Jade to be shady. Nonetheless, what she did was low, even by her standards. My mom and uncle haven't said anything thus far. I hope they stay out of it, as I truly don't want to talk to them. Regarding myself, having all of this off my mind makes me feel a lot more free. Speaking up about what happened was wise. I have no regrets about anything. Update 2. I posted it some few days ago, and yesterday my folks got in touch with me. Having only asked one thing, that I let sleeping dogs lie, they informed me they were quite let down in me. They wanted me to come up with a reason for my 3-year absence, but not tell everyone the truth about what happened, since they think Jade deserves peace and quiet in her present state. After my post, apparently, Jade has lost almost all of her friends, and even family members are no longer eager to talk to her. They seem to be blaming me. It's startling that they still provide more concern for what Jade is going through than for their own son's experiences. I told them I no longer bothered about their displeasure. An apology will never be sufficient. They let me down on several levels, and today they have no right to demand anything from me. I could say the same thing about myself if they believe Jade should have peace and quiet only because she is cancer-ridden. I was just 18 when they booted me out and forced me to live with my nasty great uncle. They showed no pity or forgiveness for me. I at least am speaking the truth. Jade lies, and she got away for 3 years. I'm going to take back my life now, and I'm not going to let anyone attempt and cause me shame about it. I advise them not to get in touch with me ever again, and that their only cause of disappointment should be themselves. Then I finally blocked them. Something I should have done long ago, but I was confused and afraid. Speaking up about what has occurred to me, though, has helped me to find closure, and today I am not under pressure to deal with my parents. For all I care, they and their expectations can go for a hike. Update 3. Hey, after 3 hard years this weekend, I finally chose to see my friends and relatives. It turned out to be rather the finest choice I have ever taken. Along with me, more for moral support than anything else, were my housemates. To be honest, they have gotten so close that we are now like brothers, and I wanted them to see my buddies too. Everyone has been getting along fantastic. My buddies were happy to see me. Since they all were outraged when I mentioned I was planning to stay in a hotel, I am actually living with one of them right now. Though I'm returning in a few days, my heart is simply so happy that I cannot even put it into words. We are spending our time of life living together in one of my friend's residences among my roommates and old buddies. I have also visited quite a few of my relatives, who have informed me they have cut off my mom, uncle and Jade. They never intend to be involved with them ever once more. At the end of the day, people will always stand for what is right, which makes me rather glad. Having individuals around who love me more than my parents ever did makes me happy, as they did not forget me. Am I the asshole for refusing to move my wedding to accommodate my brother's travel schedule? Now, everyone is furious with me. Living alone, I'm a 28-year-old lady with a regular 9-to-5 job. After almost 4 years together, Erin, my fiancé, and I have been engaged for around 1 year. We are at last organizing our wedding, something I have been dreaming about. I have given every tiny detail great care. For the past 4 months I have been tirelessly trying to make sure everything is flawless. We expected all of our loved ones to be there, so we selected the date, issued invites. That was the intended course of action regardless. Brandon and Daisy, my parents, make for an intriguing team. My 58-year-old dad works for a building company. He has always been the quiet, follow-through kind. Daisy, my mother, 55, has stayed at home for as long as I can recall. They have always harbored a particular fondness for my 32-year-old older brother, Fred. Actually, soft spot could be understated. Certainly their favorite, he is the golden child if you will. Fred is somewhat a bit of a character. Though I'll say he's usually ambitious, none of his commercial endeavors ever really turn out. He seems to live in a fantasy world where his next great invention would at last make him wealthy, having had several failed businesses. Married to Alice, 30, he has 2 children, 3-year Jenna and 5-year Ethan. Although I personally have nothing against them, it is no secret they live much over their means. My parents are always rescuing them. It has come to the point where it is expected. While I have always had to fend for myself, Fred and his family effectively live off the support of my parents. Though I knew there would be some drama, especially with Fred's concerns, I couldn't wait to inform my family when Erin proposed. Still, I tried to be upbeat. I recall the day we announced our participation. Just close family and friends, we had a little gathering at our residence. Sharing the news made me very eager, and for a split second it felt as though perhaps my parents would be delighted for me rather than only focused on Fred. Naturally though, Fred and Alice took the front stage. Just midway through our announcement, Fred began discussing his plans to open a new company and his desire to move to a larger house. The entire dialogue turned from our involvement to Fred's most recent ideas. Though it was aggravating, to put it mildly, I did not want to create a scene. I simply let my pride slide after swallowing it. Erin observed though, and later that evening he told me he was glad of my handling of it. That was quite meaningful to me. Choosing the day was still another challenge. 4 months ahead we chose a date so that everyone had plenty of time to arrange. Before deciding on it, I even followed up with my parents to see whether they were conflict-free. No trouble, they promised me they would be there. Although I should have known better, I thought that marked the end of it. I went all out in the particulars. We selected flowers, a lovely location, and the ideal outfit. Everything was lining up and I was growing increasingly enthusiastic. This was meant to be our day, a celebration of our love amid the people most important to us. Hoping it would assist to ease any possible problems, I also included Fred and Alice in the wedding party. Deeply though, I felt a storm was building. That storm struck when my parents abruptly contacted me from out of the blue with a pressing demand. It sounded bad since they had to discuss the wedding. My parents abruptly decided a few weeks ago to travel with Fred and his family. At first I puzzled myself since I assumed they were discussing a trip following the wedding. But actually, they meant the week my wedding was scheduled. Since the wedding date ran counter to their vacation schedule, they wanted to know whether I might potentially change it. I gasped. I booked everything, the venue, the caterers, and had months of planning for this wedding. I sent invites. And now, as if it were some laid-back dinner gathering, they were asking me to reschedule the date. Suddenly less significant than a last-minute trip with Fred and his family was my wedding day, the day meant to be about Erin and me. Though I attempted to keep cool, I was enraged. Why would they want to schedule a trip right next to the wedding date we have already decided upon? The answer from my mother was, well, you know how occupied Fred's calendar is, and this was the only time they could all go together. It shocked me. Fred's trip came first for them, then my wedding. I informed them there was no choice about the date. Everything was previously set, I could not have moved it merely to fit Fred's trip. Suggesting that perhaps I should at least speak with the venue and see if they could change the date, my dad tried to be a peacemaker. But I closed that right away. The date was decided upon and that was definitive. My mother became irate and declared I was being irrational when I insisted on a different date. She continued on how family should come first, and how my rigidity was making things tough for everyone. She even charged me with trying to sour their friendship with Fred and his family. Though I stood my ground, that truly stung. I informed them I was not going to reschedule the date. If they missed it, that was on them. For a minute they were quiet. Then my mother remarked they would have to think about it. They hung up, not even bidding farewell. It still amazed me that my own parents, on vacation, were genuinely thinking about skipping my wedding. Furious on my behalf, Aaron advised me to try to straighten things out by calling them back. I therefore followed. Hoping for some middle ground, I phoned them, but things did not proceed as expected. I tried to convey the significance of this wedding to me, the length of time I had been arranging it, and how painful it was that they were even recommending I change the date. Still, they were tenacious. My dad kept stating that Fred's family had already booked everything, fully ignoring the fact that I had booked everything in advance too. My mom kept suggesting that I was being irrational. Changing my schedule would be equally as difficult for me. It felt like chatting to a stone wall. I realized at the time I had to include the extended relatives. I told my aunt, who I live somewhat near, the circumstances. She promised to talk to my parents. She was exactly as startled as I was. Maybe hearing it from someone else will help them to recognize how foolish they were acting. My parents doubled down instead of backing off though. Beginning to present me as the irrational one, they began phoning other family members. They claimed I was not compromising and causing problems for everyone. They even made hints suggesting I was envious of Fred and sought to punish him by postponing the wedding date. Though some of the family began to support me, stating I should be more accommodating of Fred's family, it was total stupidity. They were obviously attempting to get me to cave in. I was not going to let them prevail. They were trying to compel me to modify the date by means of shame and family pressure. I was about to let them wreck it just to please Fred. I had every right to have my wedding on the day I had selected. I thus informed them that the date was set. Should they be unable to make it, that would be their choice. But that was final. I was not going to alter it. So Reddit, am I the jerk for not adjusting the wedding date in response to the vacation of their golden child? I am very appreciative of everyone who took the time to reply. After publishing my experience here, I got an incredible amount of support and guidance. Reviewing the comments, many individuals speculated that there could be more to my parents' abrupt trip plans than they were disclosing. It started me to consider, thus I chose to dig some. I began by chatting once more with my aunt, who has always seemed to me as essentially a second mother. She was not surprised by what was happening as she knew how my parents are with Fred. She became quite quiet though, when I mentioned the vacation. A moment later she said she had heard Fred was once more experiencing some major financial difficulties. His most recent commercial endeavor apparently failed, and he owed money. Though not enough, my folks had started supporting him once more. Desperate, Fred was seeking for a means to keep his head above water. As it happens, the trip was really a cover tale. Though not for a laid-back vacation, my parents were intending to send Fred and his family to Europe. They were scheduled to meet some possible backers Fred had located abroad. Before Fred lost everything, the entire trip was a last-ditch attempt to find someone to commit to his company. Their financial position was depending on this trip to save Fred, hence they were quite determined to travel. When I learned, I became enraged. It was about my parents once more putting Fred above everything else, including my wedding, not only about the vacation. They were ready to skip my big day in order to try to save Fred from another problem he had created. Knowing the facts, I understood I had to face Fred. I inquired whether we might meet when I phoned him. I didn't want to allow him time to get ready for any excuse, thus I didn't inform him what it was about. I came right to the point when we got together. I assured him I understood his financial problems, the trip, the investors. He initially tried to play it off, claiming it was merely a business opportunity that happened to line up the wedding date, but I was not buying it. Defensively, he stated I didn't know how much pressure he was under, how he was trying everything he could to support his family. I reminded him that our parents had been rescuing him for years. This was not the first time he had fallen into a financial hole. Fred said at last that things were terrible. His company was close to bankruptcy, hence he would lose everything should this investor transaction fall short. But he sought to guilt-trip me rather than own responsibility. As his sister, he advised me to want to assist him in whatever capacity, even if that meant changing the date of my wedding. He charged me with being egotistical and unconcerned about his family. That was the final straw. I informed him that although I had supported him as much as I could over the years, I would not be sacrificing my wedding day for his bad choices. I made it plain that I was not going to modify the date. If he couldn't be there, that was his option. I went away, leaving him seated there. Following the confrontation with Fred, I chose to get in touch with Alice. I wanted to hear her side of the tale since I wasn't sure how much she knew about things. She seemed tense as soon as we sat down when we met for coffee. She most likely understood I was not there to discuss wedding preparations. I asked her straightforwardly about her knowledge of Fred's predicament and the European trip. She said she knew the financial problems but lacked all the specifics. Though Fred had withheld a lot of it from her to guard her, she knew things were horrible. She appeared startled when I told her the true motivation for the vacation. She was unaware that my parents intended to try to find investors for Fred's company during the trip. Alice said she had been concerned about Fred's spending patterns for some time, but every time she brought it up he would dismiss her. She also said she was disappointed about missing the wedding, but Fred had persuaded her this trip was absolutely essential for their futures. When I told her how much this was affecting me and how it was seriously dividing the family, she seemed really offended. Alice clearly seemed to be in a difficult position. She wanted to help her husband, but she also wanted to avoid being the cause my parents missed my wedding. I wasn't holding my breath when she promised to speak with Fred and try to find another way to handle things. If only Fred is stubborn. Knowing that Alice wasn't totally on board with this strategy made me feel a bit better, but I also realized that ultimately Fred was probably going to act any way he felt was best for him, regardless of how it affected the rest of us. Given everything that had transpired, I came to see that gathering the entire family and laying everything out on the table was the only way to fix this. Though I wasn't sure how it would turn out, I knew that it would only become worse if we avoided confronting this squarely. I thus convened a family conference. We needed to talk, I told Fred, Alice, and my parents. No apologies, no delays. We chose to get together at my folks' house. Having Aaron at my side made me happy as he came to support me. You could see my folks were concerned since they were already here. Arriving soon afterward, Fred and Alice seemed defensive from the first. We all gathered in the living room, and I lost no time. I began by informing them I knew Fred's financial problems and the true purpose of the Europe vacation. Fred tried to seem as if it wasn't a big problem as my parents looked startled. I had none at all. I laid everything out without holdback. The years of favoritism, the never-ending bailouts, and how this was only the most recent illustration of Fred coming first over me. I told them I knew they wanted to assist Fred, but there had to be a line and this was it. I described how much this wedding meant to me. How much work I had put into organizing it and how heartbroken I was that they would be ready to toss it all for travel. I then took out the proof I had collected, copies of emails and messages between Fred and my parents debating the trip, the investors, and how they should keep it under wraps. I even kept a copy of the itinerary proving that the vacation fell during my wedding week. Fred was enraged that I had gone behind his back to obtain this information. My parents seemed to want to crawl under the couch. I gave no thought at all. I was not going to allow them to keep controlling me or guilt-inducing me about wanting to have my wedding as scheduled. Alice wasn't totally on board with the vacation, which also seemed to surprise Fred. He turned to her, but she only turned away to validate what I had said. Starting to yell, Fred accused me of attempting to ruin his life and said I was merely jealous since he was the successful one in the family. Saying she only wanted to help both of her children and didn't want to have to pick between us, my mom started crying. Silence from my dad really infuriated me. Usually the one to keep out of the drama, he would have been here to support me this time. At last Alice spoke up, saying she felt uneasy about missing the wedding given her knowledge of the whole truth. She claimed they had to come up with another approach to handle Fred's company issues outside of compromising family occasions. Fred seemed inclined toward conflict, but Alice held her ground. In that instant I did indeed start to respect her somewhat. But I still had to finish. They had to decide whether to give this trip first priority and miss my wedding or find another method to assist Fred that did not necessitate deserting me. I made it plain that I would not be changing the date. If they could not accept this, they were clearly choosing what they wanted. I let them decide over 24 hours. I warned them I would terminate relations with them should they decide not to show up for the wedding. I was not going to let them ruin my wedding day or allow them to treat me as though I did not matter. I even intimated that, should they compel me, I will publicly share the complete truth. I knew that his final requirement was for his possible investors to learn about his financial mess. This was my trump card. Fred was furious as my parents seemed as though they had been struck by a truck. Alice merely looked depressed. Though I was tired of being pushed about and of constantly putting Fred's wants second, I didn't want to do this. Telling them they knew how to get to me, I got up, walked out with Aaron. Things have been tough since that conference. Neither my parents nor Fred have heard from each other, hence I'm not sure what they will decide. I am thus simply waiting to find out whether my parents will at last prioritize me or whether this marks the end of our relationship as I know it. Update. My parents contacted out at last after what felt like an eternity. It was the longest 24 hours of my life, and as I waited for their judgment I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I knew nothing about what they would say when my phone rang, and part of me wanted not to hear it. My mother began her apology first. They had thought a lot, she stated following our last talk. They asked me to change the date and came to see how much this wedding meant to me and how cruel they had been. She said she hadn't thought about how much they were hurting me in the process and they had been overly preoccupied trying to save Fred from his most recent catastrophe. We chose to gather at my parents' house. Having Aaron at my side made me happy as he came to support me. You could see my folks were concerned since they were already here. Arriving soon afterward, Fred and Alice seemed defensive from the first. We all gathered in the living room and I lost no time. I began by informing them I knew Fred's financial problems and the true purpose of the Europe vacation. Fred tried to seem as if it wasn't a big problem as my parents looked startled. I had none at all. I laid everything out without holdback. The years of favoritism, the never-ending bailouts, and how this was only the most recent illustration of Fred coming first over me. I told them I knew they wanted to assist Fred, but there had to be a line and this was it. I told them how much this wedding meant to me, how much work I had put into organizing it, and how heartbroken I felt that they would be ready to toss it all for travel. I then pulled out the material I'd collected, copies of emails and texts between Fred and my parents debating the trip, the investors, and how they should keep it under wraps. I even kept a copy of the itinerary proving that the vacation fell during my wedding week. Fred was enraged that I had gone behind his back to obtain this information. My parents seemed to want to crawl under the couch. I gave no thought at all. I was not going to allow them to keep controlling me or guilt-inducing me about wanting to have my wedding as scheduled. Alice wasn't totally on board with the vacation, which also seemed to surprise Fred. He turned to her, but she only turned away to validate what I had said. Starting to yell, Fred said I was merely jealous since he was the successful one in the family and accused me of wanting to ruin his life. Saying she only wanted to help both of her children and didn't want to have to pick between us, my mom started crying. Silence from my dad really infuriated me. Usually the one to keep out of the drama, he would have been here to support me this time. At last Alice spoke up, saying she felt uneasy about missing the wedding given her knowledge of the whole truth. She claimed they had to come up with another approach to handle Fred's company issues outside of compromising family occasions. Fred seemed inclined toward conflict, but Alice held her ground. In that instant I did indeed start to respect her somewhat. I still had to finish though. They had to decide whether to give this trip first priority and miss my wedding or find another method to assist Fred that did not necessitate deserting me. I made it plain that I would not be changing the date. If they could not accept this, they were clearly choosing what they wanted. I let them decide over 24 hours. I warned them I would terminate relations with them should they decide not to show up for the wedding. I was not going to let them ruin my wedding day or allow them to treat me as though I did not matter. I even intimated that, should they compel me, I will publicly share the complete truth. I knew that his final requirement was for his possible investors to learn about his financial mess. This was my trump card. Fred was furious as my parents seemed as though they had been struck by a truck. Alice merely looked depressed. Though I was tired of being pushed about and of constantly putting Fred's wants second, I didn't want to do this. Telling them they knew how to get to me, I got up, walked out with Aaron. Things have been tough since that conference. Neither my parents nor Fred have heard from each other, hence I'm not sure what they will decide. I am thus simply waiting to find out whether my parents will at last prioritize me or whether this marks the end of our relationship as I know it. Update. My parents contacted out at last after what felt like an eternity. It was the longest 24 hours of my life, and as I waited for their judgment I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I knew nothing about what they would say when my phone rang, and part of me wanted not to hear it. My mother began her apology first. They had thought a lot, she stated following our last talk. They asked me to change the date and came to see how much this wedding meant to me and how cruel they had been. She said she hadn't thought about how much they were hurting me in the process and they had been overly preoccupied trying to save Fred from his most recent catastrophe. We chose to gather at my parents' house. Having Aaron at my side made me happy as he came to support me. You could see my folks were concerned since they were already here. Arriving soon afterward, Fred and Alice seemed defensive from the first. We all gathered in the living room and I lost no time. I began by informing them I knew Fred's financial problems and the true purpose of the Europe vacation. Fred tried to seem as if it wasn't a big problem as my parents looked startled. I had none at all. I laid everything out without holdback. The years of favoritism, the never-ending bailouts, and how this was only the most recent illustration of Fred coming first over me. I told them I knew they wanted to assist Fred, but there had to be a line and this was it. I told them how much this wedding meant to me. How much work I had put into organizing it, and how heartbroken I felt that they would be ready to toss it all for travel. I then pulled out the material I had collected, copies of emails and texts between Fred and my parents debating the trip, the investors, and how they should keep it under wraps. I even kept a copy of the itinerary proving that the vacation fell during my wedding week. Fred was enraged that I had gone behind his back to obtain this information. My parents seemed to want to crawl under the couch. I gave no thought at all. I was not going to allow them to keep controlling me or guilt-inducing me about wanting to have my wedding as scheduled. Alice wasn't totally on board with the vacation, which also seemed to surprise Fred. He turned to her, but she only turned away to validate what I had said. Starting to yell, Fred said I was merely jealous since he was the successful one in the family and accused me of wanting to ruin his life. Saying she only wanted to help both of her children and didn't want to have to pick between us, my mom started crying. Silence from my dad really infuriated me. Usually the one to keep out of the drama, he would have been here to support me this time. At last Alice spoke up, saying she felt uneasy about missing the wedding given her knowledge of the whole truth. She claimed they had to come up with another approach to handle Fred's company issues outside of compromising family occasions. Fred seemed inclined toward conflict, but Alice held her ground. In that instant I did indeed start to respect her somewhat. I still had to finish though. They had to decide whether to give this trip first priority and miss my wedding or find another method to assist Fred that did not necessitate deserting me. I made it plain that I would not be changing the date. If they could not accept this, they were clearly choosing what they wanted. I let them decide over 24 hours. I warned them I would terminate relations with them should they decide not to show up for the wedding. I was not going to let them ruin my wedding day or allow them to treat me as though I did not matter. I even intimated that, should they compel me, I will publicly share the complete truth. I knew that his final requirement was for his possible investors to learn about his financial mess. This was my trump card. Fred was furious as my parents seemed as though they had been struck by a truck. Alice merely looked depressed. Though I was tired of being pushed about and of constantly putting Fred's wants second, I didn't want to do this. Telling them they knew how to get to me, I got up, walked out with Aaron. Things have been tough since the conference. Neither my parents nor Fred have heard from each other, hence I'm not sure what they will decide. I am thus simply waiting to find out whether my parents will at last prioritize me or whether this marks the end of our relationship as I know it. Update: my parents contacted out at last after what felt like an eternity. It was the longest 24 hours of my life, and as I waited for their judgment I couldn't concentrate on anything else. I knew nothing about what they would say when my phone rang, and part of me wanted not to hear it. My mother began her apology first. They had thought a lot, she stated following our last talk. They asked me to change the date and came to see how much this wedding meant to me and how cruel they had been. She said she hadn't thought about how much they were hurting me in the process and they had been overly preoccupied trying to save Fred from his most recent catastrophe. She then informed me they had decided to postpone their European vacation. After all, they planned to be at the wedding. Surprised, I had readied myself for the worst since I knew Fred would be chosen once more. It was such relief to hear them select my wedding over the trip. Next my dad answered on the phone to validate what my mother had said. He said he will be there for me on my big day and apologies for not acting sooner. He also said they needed to rethink how they had been managing things as they were beginning to see how much Fred's problems will impact the family. Though it was a start, it was not precisely the sincere apologies I had been expecting for. Most important was that they were traveling to the wedding. I appreciated their choice and our call concluded on an unexpectedly upbeat note. It felt for the first time in a long time, like perhaps things might improve between us. My parents started canceling the Europe trip right away after the decision was made. As you could expect, Fred's reaction to them telling him the trip was cancelled was not great. Fred was irate. Almost right away, he called to ask what I had said to our parents to cause them to postpone the trip. I told him I had just told them the truth, that their participation at my wedding meant more to me than anything else and that they had to decide what was more vital. Fred said I was trying to harm his prospects of turning his company around, therefore accusing me of influencing them. He even implied that, driven by jealousy, I was trying to ruin his life. Though it was the same old song and dance I had heard from him a million times before, this time I resisted letting it get to me. I gently informed him that our parents had decided upon their own course and that I had nothing to do with his difficulties. He could be furious with someone, Not with me, if he wanted to be angry with someone. Fred then hung up on me and I didn't hear from him for some time. Though I was concerned about how this would impact the wedding day, I was also glad my parents were at last seeing the whole picture. They had decided to be by my side, and that was a positive direction. Over the next several days, my parents began to examine their connection with Fred and me closely. Several times my mother checked in with me, and during one of those calls she admitted that she and my dad had been discussing their treatment of us growing up a lot. She said they had always considered Fred as the one who required more help and attention due to his problems, but in doing so they had neglected my needs and taken my freedom for granted. She told me they were starting to understand how much they had harmed me over the years by always putting Fred first. Apparently, my dad brought it up saying they should constantly support Aaron and me rather than only during difficult times. This would help us. Though it was not a 180, it was the first time I had ever heard them freely admit their bias. They committed themselves to treat both of their children equally and to be more present in my life. Though I was unsure of how much of it would really stick, it was a lot to absorb. They were real, and it gave me hope that maybe going forward our relationship may become better. Regarding Fred, he remained enraged, but my parents were resolved not to let that control their behavior anymore. They were beginning to realize that continually rescuing him was not benefiting anyone. Not him, not them, and most certainly not our family as a whole. I never would have imagined hearing them suggesting they would start imposing some limitations on him. Fred obviously did not lie down for any of this. He intensified his efforts to pull my parents back on his side when he understood they were serious about calling off the vacation and attending the wedding. He began threatening our parents in all kinds of ways, including maybe suing them should they not follow through with the trip. He said he would have to sue them for breach of contract, should they fail to assist him with his business. They had pledged to help him. Though I believe Fred knew deep down, it was really an empty threat, and it highlighted his extreme need for their acceptance. Not one of my parents backed down. They advised him that their choice was definite and he had to work out his own issues without depending much on them. For them, this was a significant step, and even if it was difficult for them to challenge Fred, they knew it was essential. Fred continued from there though. He began trying to get other family members on his side by corresponding with them. Claiming that I had coerced our parents into postponing the trip in order to undermine him, he presented me as the villain. With some relatives following Fred's story, it created some conflict inside the extended family. Most of them saw through it and backed my parents' choice to give my wedding top priority. Fred tried his best, but his strategies for manipulation were less successful than they had been. People seemed at last seeing him for who he truly was, a person who was always seeking a handout instead of owning his own mistakes. All of this drama clearly creates a gulf inside the family. Certain of our relatives are firmly on Fred's side, thinking that our parents ought to have honored their word to support him no matter what. Viewed as the spoiled younger sister exploiting her wedding to create distance between the family, they perceive me. Others, particularly those who have seen how Fred's actions have impacted my parents over the years, support their choice to go to the wedding and begin enforcing limits with him. These days, family get-togethers are more contentious and individuals are silently siding. Those who believe I'm in the wrong will judge me. I try not to let that affect me. Aaron has been fantastic in keeping me focused on the positives. That is, that our wedding preparations are still underway and that my parents will be here to assist us. Not easy, but is it? I worry about how this would impact our family over time. Will this divide ever close or will it keep widening till it is too great to span? I know I have to be steadfast in my decisions even though I have no solutions. Especially when it involves compromising my own happiness, I cannot keep stopping backwards to fit everyone else. About Fred, I have no idea what his future holds. He is still looking for a means to salvage his company. Without our parents' financial support, it will be difficult. Aaron and I are concentrating on our wedding and the life we are creating together in the interim. Although the path has been difficult, I hope the changes my family is undergoing will result in a better, more balanced relationship for all of us down the road. Update. Though all the drama preceded the wedding, I wanted this day to be flawless. The day of the wedding eventually arrived. Aaron and I had worked so hard to make it unique, I simply wanted everything to go without incident. Nancy, my maid of honor, who has been my best friend since college, kept reminding me that today was about Aaron and me and that nothing else counted. At the site, a lovely garden estate, Aaron and I had fallen in love with the moment we first laid eyes on it. We were ready. Though I had not spoken to Fred since our previous chat, I knew my folks were on their way. Not sure whether he would show up or not, and the idea of a possible confrontation was weighing on me. The wedding was lovely, and I felt as luckiest person on earth as we exchanged our vows. Looking over at my parents in the front row, I saw my mum cleaning away tears. That was a little but important moment that gave me hope that perhaps we were headed in the correct direction after all. The ceremony itself lived out all I had hoped for. We kept it private, with just close family and friends, and the officiant did a fantastic job of making it seem heartfelt and personal. We snapped pictures in the yard following the ceremony. The setting was really lovely, the light was perfect. While things were still a little awkward, my parents joined us for some family photographs and it was obvious they were really delighted for us. They were trying, and it meant a lot to me. The welcome speeches were moving when it came time. My dad even shocked me with a moving toast in which he apologized for the recent conflict and said he was really pleased of the woman I'd grown to know. For him, it was a significant step and seemed like a fresh start even though it did not wipe out all that had transpired. Fred and Alice arrived just when I believed the day was running without any problems. They hadn't RSVP'd, so I wasn't sure whether they would show at all. They entered the midst of the reception and momentarily the place went quiet. Fred seemed to be carrying proof. He initially went up to our parents, had a little whispered talk with them and then moved over to Aaron and myself. Alice held back, clearly uneasy. Fred congratulated us when he got here, but he was obviously not really here to rejoice. He was there to make a point. Right in the middle of our wedding reception, he wanted to strike up a discussion on his company problems. Even on my wedding day, he seemed unable to tolerate not being the focal point of attention. Aaron moved in before I could speak. Fred was gently reminded by him that today was about celebrating our marriage and that this was not the time or place for business. Fred did not find it appealing. Aaron was not having it as he tried to protest. Fred gave up and turned away finally, but harm was done. I made every effort to ignore it and savor the remainder of the night. We danced, cut the cake and hung about with our loved ones. Though Fred tried to create drama, the evening closed on a good note. Officially, I married the love of my life. Nothing Fred did could take that away from me. Regarding Fred, his life has veered somewhat differently. My parents faced a tough choice following the wedding. They agreed to stop contributing financially. They came to see that continuously rescuing him was not doing him any good and that it was time for him to pay for his mistakes. Fred's company soon closed without our parents' assistance. He looked for additional investors, but those offers dropped through without the trip to Europe. He eventually had to start bankruptcy filings. He had trouble swallowing this harsh pill, hence his pride suffered greatly. At last Alice, who had been mounting annoyance with Fred's financial irresponsibility, reached her breaking point. She picked the children and left him, moving in with her parents as she worked out her future moves. Fred is learning to live alone and must start over in his life. Although I enjoy his demise less, I do believe this is the wake-up call he required. Perhaps now he will begin to take charge of his own life instead of depending on others to resolve issues. Only time will let us know. For Aaron and me, at last we can concentrate on our future free from all the familial strife. We intend to shortly start a family. We had to postpone our European honeymoon as well since all the wedding drama interfered. It seems like the ideal approach to honor our entering into this new phase of life. I want to pause to thank everyone on Reddit for their guidance and encouragement along this insane trip. Your statements gave me the will to defend myself and make some difficult decisions I might have otherwise backed off from. Though it wasn't simple, I'm rather happy I stayed with my guns. I gave my sister-in-law a pregnancy book, unknowingly exposing her affair with my husband's friend. Now the family's in chaos. We know each other since our husbands, Charlie, 26M, sister-in-law Cheryl, 28F, and I, 26F, attended high school together. Charlie and I were in the same year and are sweethearts from high school. We began dating our sophomore year and have been together ever since. With Cheryl, things have always been different. She's always despised me, hence I would want to say we were high school nemesis as the sentiment was reciprocal. She was a senior 2 years older than us, yet that didn't stop her from being absolutely rude to me. She was a vicious bully in high school, and regrettably, not much has changed since then. Only I could stand up to her back in high school. Everyone else was terrified since Cheryl and her buddies were infamous for mistreating anyone they came across. Some people even moved schools because of their terrible deeds or spreading of tales. They were that horrible. I am not exaggerating. I never feared her, even before Charlie and I began dating. I had always been acquainted with her brother. Cheryl didn't seem like this undefeatable entity to me as he and I had been great friends and I often stayed out at his house. She seemed like any other child. That's how everyone ought to have seen her, in my opinion, but high school can be weird. Still, I wasn't scared of Cheryl. Once I started dating Charlie, I became even more bold. She probably felt powerless over me, even as a senior, and this disturbed her. She once did something truly terrible to me. As usual, one morning upon opening my locker, dead fish and a lot of fish water dropped on me. Head to toe I was covered in nasty, sticky slime. I had to go home since I was so offended, and it was embarrassing and demoralizing. Though I couldn't prove Cheryl was behind it, I felt it had to be her. We had a severe verbal argument in the cafeteria the day before. I labeled her a brain-dead zombie in front of her friends, some of whom even laughed. She did this to me since she couldn't let that go. Charlie felt it had to be his sister too, and their argument turned out really intense. He managed to convince her to back off even though he cannot get her to apologize to me. Though Charlie and I have been together for years, Cheryl and I never spoke once that incident occurred. But once Charlie and I got married last year, my in-laws informed Cheryl and me that since we were now family, we had to try more to get along. Some nosy relatives had been questioning our lack of communication or simply glancing at each other during family events, which embarrassed them. Having gone far from high school, I was ready to let the past pass. I agreed to be polite. Cheryl and I shook hands like grown-ups. Though we chose to be friendly at family functions rather than avoid one another, we were not going to be best friends overnight. Things appeared to be going good a year ago. We would say hi and then go on whenever we ran across each other. We had left the bad blood behind us, so I assumed, but then she became cruel once more. She showed up empty-handed on my birthday some few months earlier, which was okay. She then told me she was actually teaching me cooking classes and emailed me an online program she had bought at the party itself while I was opening everyone's gifts. She said it was meant to be a joke, but nobody else laughed and I didn't either. For background, I had done all the cooking for the day alone, hence it was quite nasty. I have always loved working in the kitchen and experimenting even though I am not a professional chef. Since childhood, cooking has been a pastime of mine. Her comment, she was going to give me cooking lessons, was quite nasty, right after she had eaten a whole dinner I had made. As Charlie had pointed out, everyone knew I produced everything. I took it to heart since I had worked hard and woke up at 6:30 a.m. to make sure everything was perfect. No one truly laughed even once she explained it as a joke. She persisted even though several people laughed merely to let her drop it. She kept insisting she was kidding, but she really thought I should have culinary classes since everything she had eaten that day made her feel sick and she kept saying she might throw up at any time. She also made jokes on how everyone should clear the path to the bathroom should she have to barf. She was truly approaching my last nerve at the end of the evening, and I felt relief when she left. She didn't even bother bidding farewell after spending the whole day cracking jokes at the expense of my cooking abilities, which, by the way, aren't particularly horrible. Charlie and everyone else told me the food was fantastic, hence I have no idea what she was talking about. To be honest, I had begun to believe she might be a decent human being, but after my birthday I chose to resume neglect of her. She obviously still lived in her high school mean girl form, and someone like her had no right to be friendly with me. Cheryl had her birthday last week. She had to invite me even if we are not getting along since I asked her to my party. Charlie traveling without me would have been strange, hence she invited me in order to maintain family peace. That proved to be rather a blunder. I chose to let her taste her own medication. Based on a few weeks old overheard talk, I handed her the book What to Expect When You're Expecting *. For background, Cheryl came up to our place 3 weeks ago. She insisted on talking to Charlie in private and appeared depressed. She didn't realize I was standing immediately outside listening in on their conversation. I left the room to let them chat in the living room. Though I knew it wasn't moral, I was intrigued and wanted to listen in so Charlie could cover for me when she left. Cheryl was pregnant, per what I understood, but she was truly concerned as she felt unprepared to be pregnant. She had come to consult her brother. Charlie advised her to talk to her spouse even if she felt unprepared. Given that the pregnancy was early, they may discuss ending it should she still feel unprepared. He reasoned that chatting to her husband could allow her to relax and take better control of the circumstances. Cheryl left after briefly consoling her. I told Charlie what I had overheard as she left. We both agreed she had been behaving oddly. She appeared strange coming to us instead of her husband even if she wasn't ready for a baby. She said some things that nearly sounded like she needed Charlie's assistance in covertly ending the pregnancy, but he wasn't ready to engage in such dishonest behavior. He thought her husband ought to know before any decisions were taken. Though ultimately the woman's decision is hers, we felt her spouse at least deserved to be included in the conversation given she was married. We had not heard anything else regarding her pregnancy since that day. Still, I decided to pull a small practical joke on her and handed her that book. Fortunately, she did not unwrap the gifts in front of every visitor at the party, yet it made no difference since the book truly got her into trouble. Her husband might thus eventually find himself leaving her. She called me in tears the day after her birthday, stating I had destroyed her life and charged me with purposefully undermining her marriage. What she was talking about eluded me. She was so enraged and was screaming at me, so I couldn't even get her to clarify what was happening. She hung up silently, done, without further word. Following that phone chat, my in-laws got in touch and reported exactly what had happened. She apparently had been unwrapping all of her gifts with her husband, and then that book surfaced. I had even left a note stating that Charlie and I wished to congratulate her and affixed it to the book. She hadn't told anyone yet about the pregnancy, but I wanted to play about with her the way she had done on my birthday. I had no clue it would have such dire results. She could not have become pregnant by her spouse since he was sterile. This was unknown to her. She apparently may have been cheating now, and her spouse had already shown suspicion. That book served to validate his misgivings. Though none of the family members know for sure whether she had been cheating or not, let's be honest, she most certainly wasn't biologically incapable of having children. In any case, that is not my line of work. All I know is she had come to Charlie thinking he would assist her covertly in ending the pregnancy. Now we know why she wanted to keep it a secret and why she was so queasy when she spoke with him. She cannot let that happen if she wanted to end the pregnancy without her husband knowing, since she is a homemaker and everything she spends might be followed by him. Even pulling money would be suspect, as it would be a large sum that would beg problems. Cheryl made a great effort to persuade her husband that I was merely teasing and that nothing was happening. He disagreed when she claimed the book was only a hoax. Unless there was some truth to it, he doubted Charlie and I would pull such a joke. He then requested Cheryl to leave, and today she lives with her parents. My in-laws asked me to talk to her husband and persuade him that I had only handed her the book to play about with. Given his suspicions of her adultery, they believed I might get him to approach her and fix things. Her fidelity now begged additional questions. I disagree, since they think I should not have done what I did and that I'm at blame. For the past week, my in-laws and I have been at conflict. Given her behavior at my birthday celebration, I believe I was justified in what I did. I don't think I should accept the fall for this, as I had no idea it would cause so much trouble. She most certainly should have been faithful to her husband if she wanted peace in her marriage. To hold me responsible for it is unfair. Charlie has the same sentiment. Though he believes the present was a little excessive given the events of my birthday celebration, he does not advise me to apologize to Cheryl or even talk to her husband about any of this. Saying we should resolve things since her marriage is in jeopardy, my in-laws keep fighting with us. They believe that should we fail to persuade her spouse that this was only a joke, the family may suffer from divorce. She most certainly was cheating, though, if she was pregnant when she spoke with Charlie and her husband is sterile. Should that be the case, we want no involvement whatsoever or defense of her. Apart from that, the book was only vengeance for the jokes she cracked at my birthday. I had no clue it would result in anything like this. I have nothing to be guilty over. It is not like I did it on intention. Still, they all seem to be behaving as though I am the villain, the mastermind behind a sinister scheme meant to wipe her off target or otherwise. It's very strange. Suddenly I'm questioning my choices. AITA kindly sent a pregnancy book as a birthday present to my sister-in-law. Update 1, Hi, so it's been 2 weeks since I handed Cheryl that book, and up until now we have avoided talking to her husband. From what we know, she had been cheating on her husband with another man, hence going forward we will also keep to that. Though I'm not sure specifically, I believe it's someone from high school. Worse, I believe it's someone from Charlie's acquaintance group, since a few days ago we spoke, more of an argument, on the phone with Cheryl. She stated it was quite unjust that she was being held accountable for all of this, but Charlie's friend was equally culpable. However, he wasn't getting any criticism and was even unwilling to defend her. Though we don't know exactly who she's referring to, Charlie has quite a few married pals from high school. That's not really our main concern. Managing my in-laws has proved somewhat challenging. I don't believe they have done it yet. They insist I should chat to her spouse before he files for divorce. He keeps telling he'll do it, but if he truly wants to split, he should have done it now. What he is waiting for is unknown to me. Anyway, they believe they still have time and that, if I only talk to him, I could be able to persuade him not to leave her by stating I was only doing a practical joke. I have nothing to do with all of this drama, hence I refuse to allow myself to get caught in it. Though they have been making it somewhat challenging for us, I simply want to back off and relax. Thus, yesterday we had to make a really difficult choice and ultimately block all three of them since they were slightly disturbing us. We can't keep talking to them, trying to help them to grasp where we are coming from. Over 2 weeks have passed. She was truly a bully to me in high school, yet many of the people in the comments on my first post felt it was unacceptable of me to do what I did. She had been cheating, hence I doubt I have to feel guilty about what I did. Still, folks are free to disagree with me in this free nation. Update 2. Hi, 3 days have passed since our last report, and at last we were able to identify the person she had been having the affair with. Charlie's friend she mentioned turned out to be among his closest pals. This surprised me somewhat a bit. Because his family was acting somewhat irrationally, Charlie had been complaining to his pals about how challenging things had been for him the past 2 weeks. I suppose his pal chose to come clean as he couldn't tolerate it anymore. He called Charlie and told him he had been seeing Cheryl in an affair. Apparently, all of this began roughly 1 year ago, just around our wedding's time. For us, it was really startling and we are still trying to understand it. Charlie is quite close to every one of his buddies, hence we never expected a betrayal like this. From what we have seen, this guy, who has been married for 3 years, and his wife seem to be truly in love. I personally know the woman. She talks endlessly about her husband. Right now, I just feel somewhat sorry for her. We decided straight away to cut him off, and right now we are not telling anyone since we do not want to discredit him. But we will most certainly not be entertaining this going forward. We even told him to tell his wife straightforward since she is the one who really needs to know the truth. Nobody should ever have to go through what this is like. He also supplied us with evidence of Cheryl cheating on her spouse alongside him. We have come to the conclusion that, at least nothing good would come of it if we allowed ourselves to be pulled into this play. Hence, our last call is keeping them blocked. To what we know, they have not discussed this with anyone else. Everyone still believes we get along well with my in-laws and that Charlie's relatives know nothing about the turmoil underway behind the scene. Given the circumstances, which would be somewhat embarrassing for the family, I'm betting they are keeping things under wraps in order to protect their name. Though I suppose it's a surface motivation, I value their great concern for their perceived image. We don't want to deal with other people right now and it's helping us keep everything secret. As it is, we have sufficient on our plates. Charlie's cousin is getting married in a few weeks, hence they will have to go to that wedding. We're not sure whether my in-laws or Cheryl will be there given the present circumstances, but if they decide to go, boy, that will be quite strange for everyone concerned. Update 3. Hey, practically 2 months after my last update is here. Not truly intriguing events occurred in these previous 2 months. We sort of forgot about my in-laws once we cut them off. Their end also lacked news, hence they did not try to get in touch with us. We thought perhaps Cheryl and her husband had been able to sort things out as neither a pregnancy announcement nor a divorce announcement was made. Good for them, then I suppose. Charlie and I know that adultery never stays secret, thus we really don't care about what's happening in their marriage. When her husband finds out the truth, she will most certainly receive what she deserves. Regarding the pregnancy, I suppose she stopped it some way. In any case, we didn't bother ourselves with it and kept to our own business as whatever happened is not of importance to us. That was till we visited his family at his cousin's wedding some few days ago. Including Cheryl's spouse and my in-laws, all of them were present. Once we arrived, we acted as though the others did not exist and neglected even greeting each other. Clearly, the rest of the family noticed it right away. People began posing all kinds of inquiries to us. Though they attempted to be subdued about it, we knew they were gathering gossip. But we simply tried to keep to ourselves so nobody would disturb us. We did not entertain anyone. Cheryl, on the other hand, followed a different strategy. She chose to blab her mouth off even though we knew the facts. We were ready to put up with her since we were 3 days at the hotel and it was just a matter of time till we returned home. But she began to say such terrible things about us that we had to confront her about it. Sadly, that resulted in a somewhat public confrontation between our families during the rehearsal dinner. It was someone else's wedding, hence I regret it as Charlie and his cousin got along well. Now one of the events was totally destroyed thanks to us. Naturally, following such a spectacle, we had to leave before the wedding even started since we couldn't stay much longer. We have since apologized multiple times to his cousin. She has indicated she is cool with it, but we still feel quite horrible about what happened. Cheryl and my in-laws, on the other hand, were really in charge of generating all of this turmoil, yet they hardly bothered to apologize to Charlie's cousin. At least we departed of our own will. The other family members practically urged them to go after we departed. Serves them right, they were due this kind of shame. It was pretty fulfilling for both of us when Charlie's cousin told him about it the day before her wedding as we were phoning her apologies. Cheryl had been telling all the family, and everyone who would listen that we had tried to destroy her marriage by lying about her adultery, therefore leading us to a fight in the first place. She said we failed in trying to undermine her marriage. Clearly, that was untrue since, as we indicated, her marriage life is not something we give much thought to. Choosing to live with a lady like her husband had shown how dumb he was. We were even ready to let that slip since we were attending someone else's wedding and we wanted to avoid starting a scene. She then began asserting, though, that we were the ones having an open marriage and that I wanted to get close to her husband, which explained why I'd always been so envious of her. We couldn't live with that. We resolved to face her then. I mentioned all the evidence, the screenshots we had gotten from Charlie's friend, which I had been saving to myself for so long on the evening of the rehearsal dinner. Charlie and I now felt, nonetheless, that it was at last time to defend ourselves. She could not simply say anything she pleased and get away with it. Her husband can no longer ignore reality since he at last knows it. His call is whether or not he takes the correct decision for himself and leaves her. At least now there will be no more questioning of us. At least we left on our own with courtesy, avoiding being thrown out as others were. Though we are now attempting to move over it, it was just a really awful few days. The whole family knows Cheryl's type of person she is, thus I just feel sympathy for her husband as he decided to mend things with her even though it was useless. I truly hope he gets the bravery to escape. Should he decide to remain with her, then he just has absolutely no decency or self-respect. We eventually decided to go ahead and sabotage her marriage as she had been accusing us of for so long. She will now have to pay for trying to bully us. How she planned to get away with all of this is unknown. Since high school, Charlie and I have literally been standing up to Mom. I believe we have made it really evident that we are not scared of her. We were not thus going to back down either right now. She ought to have known that. Update 4. Consequently, it is happening. 2 weeks have passed since our return from Charlie's cousin's wedding, and today I at last heard from a couple of cousins Cheryl wrote about her and her husband divorcing. She said that it was a mutual decision to split ways and urged everyone to honor their privacy during this trying period. What a weight of lies this baggage carries. She's behaving as people weren't present at the wedding and like her entire family isn't aware of what actually happened and the real reason they're divorcing, hence I'm not sure why she's acting like we all already know, hence we will definitely be honoring her privacy. No one has to ask her what happened. The talk began when Charlie told some of his pals, thus even her friends have learned about it. We regret nothing about what we did. She had been spewing so much garbage about us in the past that we hardly need to feel guilty about what we did or regret her. Should she go low, we will go lower as well. Period is. She has always been a bully, thus we believe we did the correct thing as someone needed her down a peg. We are happy to be the ones doing that. If that makes some people view us as the bad guys, that is okay with us. For example, my in-laws have chosen to totally cut us off from their life. They even had their attorney get in touch with Charlie to let him know they had opted to avoid us and most likely would cut us off from the inheritance as well. As like we were going to learn that and start begging for pardon right away. That is not going to transpire. We are not money-based sellouts that one could purchase. Besides, since Cheryl hasn't worked since she graduated and has been depending on either her parents or her husband, they should most likely retain all their money to themselves, presumably for the rest of their lifetime. Thus, yes, they may keep their money and Cheryl with herself by all means. We behaved what we believe to be right. We are not going to act as though we are sorry for it. Right now, Charlie and I are quite happy with our life. We have no interest in anyone else. Years after my brother evicted me for his growing family, he now wants to move into my home. Am I the asshole for refusing to help? Alright, this is a long one, and I honestly need an outside perspective. Several years ago, I, 28F, was living with my older brother Tom, 37M, and his wife Karen, 34F. I had just graduated from college, had a pretty bad job at the time, and was struggling to make ends meet. Tom had a house with a guest room, and he told me I could stay with them for a while until I got back on my feet. I was beyond grateful, and I made sure to help out however I could, cooking, cleaning, buying groceries when I could afford it. Fast forward about 6 months. I finally landed a decent job and was able to contribute more financially. I was on my way to becoming independent. Around this time, Karen got pregnant. At first, everything seemed fine, but then Karen started dropping subtle hints that they needed more space for the baby. The hints soon turned into direct conversations about how they needed the guest room for a nursery. Tom assured me that I could stay until I found a new place, but Karen was clearly becoming more agitated by the day. Then, one afternoon, I came home from work to find all my stuff packed up and sitting in the hallway. Tom told me that Karen had decided they needed me out ASAP. No discussion, no warning. He tried to soften the blow by saying they'd help me with a security deposit on a new place, but it was humiliating and hurtful. I ended up couch surfing for a couple of months until I could afford a small studio apartment. It was a really tough time for me, both emotionally and financially. I'll never forget the feeling of being thrown out of my own brother's house like that. Fast forward to now. Tom's life has taken a turn. His business went under, and they're having financial issues. Last week, He called me out of the blue, sounding desperate. They're being evicted from their house and have nowhere to go. He asked if he, Karen, and their 2 kids could stay with me for a few months, while they get back on their feet. Here's the thing. I'm doing much better now. I have a good job, a nice apartment, and I've been saving for a house. I can technically accommodate them, but the thought of letting them move in after what they did to me years ago just doesn't sit right. I told Tom I needed to think about it, and ever since, he's been sending me guilt-trippy texts about how family is supposed to be there for each other, and how they have nowhere else to go. Even my parents have gotten involved, saying I should let them stay with me because they're family, and what happened years ago is in the past. But here's the kicker. Karen hasn't apologized once for how they treated me. Not a word. She didn't even acknowledge it when we spoke on the phone. It's like they expect me to just forget about it and welcome them with open arms. I'm torn. Part of me feels like I should help because they are my family, but the other part of me feels like this is karmic justice. Am I the asshole for refusing to let them stay with me after what they did? Or should I let the past go and help them out in their time of need? After 10 years together, I'm ending my relationship with the woman I love because she wants kids and I don't. Am I the asshole? Original post, I, 31M, have known her, 29F, since we were teenagers? We got together 10 years ago, and have been living together for a bit over 7. It's been the perfect relationship in pretty much every way. We support each other through everything, we have fun together, she's my best friend and I'm hers. We're as intensely in love as we've ever been. We've discussed marriage a bunch through the years. As of a few years ago it wasn't either of us cup of tea, but more recently she has expressed an interest in tying the knot. I don't really have an interest in marriage as a concept, but as I was intent on spending my life with her either way, if she needed a ring and a wedding I was more than willing to accommodate her. As of around half a year ago, I was in the planning stages of a proposal, and had even started to look for a ring. I didn't spoil the eventual surprise, but based on our conversations on the matter I don't think it would have been very unexpected to her if I'd popped the question. If anything, she must be wondering what's taking so long, at this point. But our desires for the future have diverged in another way, that I can't just compromise over. She wants to be a mother, and I don't want to be a father. Much like marriage, for much of our relationship she didn't have such a desire, but now she does. Unlike marriage, however, parenting is not just a symbolic thing I can accommodate her on. She didn't pressure me to change my mind, but she has tried to gauge whether there was wiggle room on my end, whether I could see my opinion on the matter change. I can't. At this point, she has accepted that. I could pop into a jewelry store tomorrow, pick out a ring, propose to her at the next opportunity. She would say yes and a while later we'd be married, still on our way to spending our lives together. Even though she knows we will not have children together. She may still hold out hope I'll change my mind. I can't know for certain either way, of course. I'd get to be with her probably forever, which is really all I want. But, she wants to be a mother. Not only has she expressed it to me, it has been painfully obvious in the way she is around our friends and relatives' babies and children, or in the way she awkwardly brushes off her mother's comments about waiting for grandchildren. It really is plain to see. I couldn't miss it if I tried and, trust me, for a while I did. So I have to let her go. Or, since she has not exactly been trying to leave me, I guess a more accurate way to phrase it is that I have to push her away. I have considered the other options. There's the selfish option, which really just involves staying with her, never giving her a child. I wouldn't even have to coerce her into this or lie about my stance on the subject, but every parent I've asked has gushed about parenting being the most fulfilling experience they've gone through. And for some of them I saw firsthand the exact same tells that they wanted to start a family that I now see with my girlfriend. I can't be the person taking that away from her. There's also a part of me that just fears she'd resent and leave me later on. Then there's the option of committing to eventually become a father, for her. Maybe someday I'd even be thankful I did it. For me, after all, some of the parents I've polled also said they weren't always keen to have children. Some still had doubts even while expecting, and yet it still ended up being that wonderful, fulfilling experience they all described. But even as I type this, even as I try to convince myself I actually believe this, I just don't. And while I've asked for happy parents and healthy family units, there are also plenty of unhappy ones, or just shit ones, in this world. I think the least that every child deserves is to be wanted by both of their parents, and I can't see myself go through with this if there's even a chance that I won't meet even that very low bar. Even less so since I believe that chance to be quite high. I've pondered variations of those two main ones too. Waiting it out and hoping she changes her mind. Maybe being an aunt or a godmother, both are likely to happen within the next couple years, in the future can be enough, but they all seem like rolls of the dice, whose results will only be known years from now. When she expressed the desire to start a family, it was as a plan for a few years into the future. If that is to happen, without me, then I need to do this now. I've already procrastinated, simply pausing my plans for a proposal when I first realized how much she really wanted this, hoping a better answer would magically appear before me. But I can't just kick this can down the road forever. I've set the date, which is tomorrow. I will tell her I want to separate. I will tell her why, as I have here. I have prepared myself in case she pushes back, tells me she doesn't want this, believes me to be lying about my reasons, pleads me to reconsider. I think my resolve is strong enough to hold no matter what she throws at me. I expect this to be a shock to her. As I said, she's likely to expect me to pop the question rather than to end things. I know I'm going to break her heart, and I fucking hate myself for it. I'm also going to break mine, but I guess that's on me. I've already made plans for the aftermath. I know where I'll be staying for a short while after this, so I'll be out of her hair. I've laid out some options for longer-term living arrangements. I already know that everyone around us, my own family included, is gonna think I'm either an asshole or a complete moron. I doubt I'll get much in the way of empathy, but I also won't be looking for it. Can't plan for everything though. Figuring out how to live without her gonna be a bitch. Full transparency, I started writing this hoping I'd talk myself out of pulling that trigger. Hoping that typing it all out would reveal the magical answer I've been hoping for. But it hasn't. If anything, it has reinforced what I already knew. Edit. Some of you are pointing out that I'm taking a choice out of her hands when it should be her decision, or at least a joint one. I actually agree. But for months now I haven't been able to shake off the feeling that leaving that choice to her is in some ways cruel. Can you imagine leaving the one you love, shattering their heart, so you can then seek something they couldn't give you elsewhere? The only reason I can make that decision is because yes, I'll be hurting her, but in the hope that she gets something she wants, that I can't give her, out of it. If the roles were reversed, I could never leave her for my own benefit. I know it's still unfair for me to just take away her agency in this. I feel shit about it. I feel shit about a ton of things right now. I'll feel even worse tomorrow. But I don't know what else I can do that doesn't force an impossible choice on her. Edit 2. So this got a wide range of responses. Some of you agree. Some of you think I should be more nuanced in my approach. Some are being really weird and trying to shove sexism into this, or making up fanfiction that twists this into me just looking for an excuse to break up with her. Some also are saying I should just force myself to have children, which I feel are the most bonkers takes. Lots of you are also saying I need a vasectomy. And yes, that is something I plan to do. Among the criticisms saying I shouldn't just make that decision, a lot of you are saying I need to clarify to her how certain I am that I don't want children. I did mention that, maybe I didn't make it clear enough, but that has already happened. She has talked to me about it, about whether there was any chance I'd change my mind. I have been as clear as I could have been that there was not. And she has accepted it and made her choice to stay with me despite that. These are things that have already happened. But despite making that choice, it has been clear, painfully so, that she still does want children. That is why I'm taking the decision out of her hands. Maybe I'm as dumb or as big an asshole as some of you are saying. Maybe I'm gonna ruin both our lives for no good reason. But there is no point at this stage in restating my stance and pawning the choice off on her again. I think the choice she made will make her unhappy in the long term, and I think I have to do what I'm going to do. There's nothing else to it. P.S. Do not expect or await any further update. Edit 3. In my second and last edit to the original post, I told people not to expect an update. Frankly, I didn't think I'd want to write one, nor did I really think I'd have anything much to say. Things didn't exactly work out how I thought and said they would, so here I am. I did approach her last Saturday. I expressed what had been troubling me and explained to her why I thought we should go our separate ways. As I thought it would, it came as a shock to her. She told me that while she had been wanting to start a family with me, she thought she'd made it clear that she'd chosen me over that prospect, fully aware it would not happen. She emphasized that the with me part was essential to her, that she couldn't picture it any other way. I told her that I was aware of the choice she'd made, but that I did not want to be the reason she'd miss out on being a parent. That while I'm sure she didn't make that call lightly, that I can tell she still wishes to have children. She did confirm that wasn't a desire that had just disappeared, that it was still there, and that while that's true, I can only see her choice to stay with me leading to regret and resentment for her. I'm not gonna retell the whole discussion, those are the very rough broad strokes of both of our core positions, but it lasted hours, went through a range of arguments and emotions, cries on both sides, anger and distrust that I was being honest about my reasons on hers. I'd written in the original post that I thought I had the resolve to end things with her no matter what. As it turned out, maybe it came from a lack of resolve, or maybe she just got through to me and it would have just been stubbornness not to listen. But at the end of it, we agreed on just taking time apart from one another for the foreseeable future. On her part, she promised me she would truly take that time to think about all of it, to re-examine her feelings in depth. On mine, I committed to accepting her choice. The argument that convinced me was that this would be the first time in over a decade, the first time since we properly became adults, that we wouldn't be in each other's life, and that if the gain of perspective from being apart didn't change her mind, that had to mean something. Trying to see things rationally, I think the reasoning is sound. On a more emotional level, I cannot say I'm 100% certain I'm not just convincing myself of that, but overall I do think it's the way to go. The fact that, at this point, I don't know what she'll decide is one thing that makes me believe this was right. It also scares the shit out of me because, one of the two options is that I lose her. Might be dumb since I was ready to end it, but thinking about that prospect did and still does wreck me. Based on the responses I got last time, I'd wager many of you will think I was wrong to agree to this. Others advised exactly this, so maybe they'll be happy. Others, I'm sure, will still think I'm an asshole. Hopefully, this will turn out to be the right choice, whatever her decision ends up being. We have not set an exact time frame. I've asked that she take at least a few months, as that sounds like a good minimum, and more importantly that she takes as long as she needs. We, obviously, won't be living together anymore. I'm currently staying at a hotel, but, her decision, she will soon, a matter of days, move out of our apartment, at which point I'll move back in. From that point on, we will have no contact with one another at all, except for very strict exceptions which will hopefully not arise, emergencies, personal tragedies. And that's pretty much it. I miss her already. The next while is gonna suck. The aftermath may also suck, but then again this doesn't suck any worse than I was expecting the aftermath of the definitive breakup I thought would happen would suck. I don't want to promise an update that will tell you how it all ends. That is months away, and I don't know that I'll be in a sharing mood. And that's even if this ends with good news. Sorry for that. Hopefully I will though. Update 1. In my second and last edit to the original post, I told people not to expect an update. Frankly, I didn't think I'd want to write one, nor did I really think I'd have anything much to say. Things didn't exactly work out how I thought and said they would, so here I am. I did approach her last Saturday. I expressed what had been troubling me, and explained to her why I thought we should go our separate ways. As I thought it would, it came as a shock to her. She told me that while she had been wanting to start a family with me, she thought she'd made it clear that she'd chosen me over that prospect, fully aware it would not happen. She emphasized that the with me part was essential to her, that she couldn't picture it any other way. I told her that I was aware of the choice she'd made, but that I did not want to be the reason she'd miss out on being a parent. That while I'm sure she didn't make that call lightly, that I can tell she still wishes to have children, she did confirm that wasn't a desire that had just disappeared, that it was still there. And that while that's true, I can only see her choice to stay with me leading to regret and resentment for her. I'm not gonna retell the whole discussion. Those are the very rough broad strokes of both of our core positions, but it lasted hours, went through a range of arguments and emotions, cries on both sides, anger and distrust that I was being honest about my reasons on hers. I'd written in the original post that I thought I had the resolve to end things with her no matter what. As it turned out, maybe it came from a lack of resolve, or maybe she just got through to me and it would have just been stubbornness not to listen. But at the end of it, we agreed on just taking time apart from one another for the foreseeable future. On her part, she promised me she would truly take that time to think about all of it, to re-examine her feelings in depth. On mine, I committed to accepting her choice. The argument that convinced me was that this would be the first time in over a decade, the first time since we properly became adults, that we wouldn't be in each other's life, and that if the gain of perspective from being apart didn't change her mind, that had to mean something. Trying to see things rationally, I think the reasoning is sound. On a more emotional level, I cannot say I'm 100% certain I'm not just convincing myself of that, but overall I do think it's the way to go. The fact that, at this point, I don't know what she'll decide is one thing that makes me believe this was right. It also scares the shit out of me because, one of the two options is that I lose her. Might be dumb since I was ready to end it, but thinking about that prospect did and still does wreck me. Based on the responses I got last time, I'd wager many of you will think I was wrong to agree to this. Others advised exactly this, so maybe they'll be happy. Others, I'm sure, will still think I'm an asshole. Hopefully, this will turn out to be the right choice, whatever her decision ends up being. We have not set an exact time frame. I've asked that she take at least a few months, as that sounds like a good minimum, and more importantly that she takes as long as she needs. We, obviously, won't be living together anymore. I'm currently staying at a hotel, but, her decision, she will soon, a matter of days, move out of our apartment, at which point I'll move back in. From that point on, we will have no contact with one another at all, except for very strict exceptions which will hopefully not arise, emergencies, personal tragedies. And that's pretty much it. I miss her already. The next while is gonna suck. The aftermath may also suck. But then again, this doesn't suck any worse than I was expecting the aftermath of the definitive breakup I thought would happen would suck. I don't want to promise an update that will tell you how it all ends. That is months away, and I don't know that I'll be in a sharing mood. And that's even if this ends with good news. Sorry for that. Hopefully I will though. Update 2. So, I'm not quite sure how many people remember and/or care about my original posts. They're still up on my profile if you need a refresher. But either way, here it comes. First off, I did break our no contact policy once. A couple of weeks in, I reached out to let her know about my intent to get a vasectomy, which happened a few weeks after that. It was a short conversation. She told me she did expect I might want to do that. We both confessed to missing the other, and that's pretty much it. I hadn't told her before our break because I'm skittish about medical procedures and was still reading up on and talking myself into it. And I didn't wait till after, because I felt that was information that could help her reflection, and also didn't like the idea of either delaying the procedure for an unknown amount of time or going through with it behind her back. If that makes sense. Now, on to the conclusion to all of this. I won't keep you in suspense any longer. My partner and I are back together and have been for some weeks. Aside from my transgression, we had no contact with one another for the duration of the outbreak, until she reached out to me saying she had made her decision and asking if we could meet later that day, at our place. Technically just mine at that point, but you get it. Once she got there, she talked me through what she'd been doing during our time apart. She explained that at first she needed some time adjusting to life without me, not just in the sense of missing me as a person but also of not having a partner for the first time in a decade. Our experiences in that regard were rather similar. I guess we'd both grown to be somewhat codependent. Once she was past that, she started exploring her feelings on parenthood. One thing she did was talk about it with friends and relatives, both with parents, future parents as well as child-free couples, talking about their experience, about how they came to end up where they did. She also made a point to spend time with children, babysitting for friends semi-regularly and stuff like that. There was also a lot of pure introspection, thinking about her feelings as well as our relationship. She told me that while she does love being around children, she can confidently say that she doesn't need children of her own, and that she would rather be with the right person. Lucky for me, she still thinks I'm that person. While we both had to shed a bit of our codependency, the yearning and love for one another didn't go away or dim for either of us. Back to her thoughts on children and not having them, she said that she'd still have children in her life. Her brother and his wife are planning to start a family soon. My own sister, who is on good terms with my partner, already has one. And that would be enough to fulfill that part of her. She said she was sure and asked if I was going to be able to accept her decision. I said yes and thanked her for respecting my own decision not to have children and still wanting to be with me. We also talked about how worthwhile each of us felt this time apart had been. She said that while it ultimately didn't change her mind, it reinforced it, and she said that she could understand why I needed that added certainty. She did add that she wished I'd been more open to her about this whole thing before I'd essentially convinced myself to end things with her, that she felt communication had before been a strong point of our relationship and that it did hurt to be blindsided. I committed to doing better in the future should any such circumstances arise. And that's kind of it. We've fallen back into our relationship dynamic pretty seamlessly. She's back living with me in our apartment. We've been making up for lost time, catching up on what the other had been up to, and made a point to have what I'd call an above average amount of romantic evenings and such since we got back together. Really though, the romance is nice, just being with her again has been bliss. Her 30th birthday is coming up over the summer and we've made plans for a 2-week getaway somewhere sunny to celebrate, just the two of us. We will also have a thing with friends and family once we're back, but we'll be away for the day proper. Not our first time vacationing together of course, but kinda pulling out all the stops on this one. I'm also considering maybe popping the question then, but I first want to sound out that it is still what she wants. Hopefully I don't completely ruin the surprise trying to figure that out. I'd like to thank those who left comments or reached out in DMs, whether they were messages of support, advice or criticism. I was not in the ideal mindset to accept feedback after my initial submission, but I did find worth in a lot of what I dismissed at the time, rereading those threads, the ones I made but also on another sub they were reposted to, during the past months. This will hopefully be the last update, but I'll try to answer a few comments.